you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Hi there, and thanks for listening. I know that you've gotten used to me ranting for a while during these intros, but not today. Today you will be spared a long rant and need to endure just a small one. Arkansas and Kansas. What's the deal? Have you seen the way these words are spelled? It should either be Arkansas and Kansas or Arkansas and Kansas. It can't be both. Come on, people, seriously. It's not that hard. Before we get to today's episode, I also wanted to share that based on someone's suggestion, I have started adding a playlist section in each episode's description. That way, if people want to go back later and listen to some of the specific songs that we talked about during the episode, they can do so. Also, I would really like your feedback. I want to hear about your favorite episodes, favorite points of view, things you agreed with, things you didn't agree with, and why. This can be done one of two ways. Either the Facebook group, which is preferred, so that many people can benefit from your comments, or by emailing me at whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. Let me know your thoughts. Lastly, if you enjoyed this podcast, do me a favor and leave a review. This helps more people hear it, apparently. Thanks. For today's episode, I sat down with Sabin Brock, someone that I have known since high school, but didn't really connect with until later in life when I attended a Bible study at his tattoo shop that he owns. Sabin has a lot of really insightful things to say here, and he also shares his amazing testimony. Topics discussed today are the tattoo industry, punk rock, Zero Boys, Bad Religion, Dogwood, Minor Threat, Good Riddance, Stone Temple Pilots, The Best Bassist, Operation Ivy, Crimpshrine, 15, The Best Guitarist, Christina Aguilera, 7 Seconds, Guttermouth, Abortion, Not All Natives Get Along, Tribalism, LGBTQ, Misrepresentation, Dating, Hoeflation, Homelessness, and literally getting Bible thumped. Enjoy the conversation.
My immune system's been kind of compromised right now.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really weird.
Oh, I'm sure, man.
Yeah, I'm on a down taper, so they taper you up with the medication, and they keep you there, and then they taper you off, but they can't just like take these pills and then all of a sudden you're done. Like they're pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
The worst part has been my teeth.
Really?
Yeah, man.
From the medication, or?
Yeah, because they just hurt.
Huh. And that's a side effect?
No, I think it's because I eat so much meat.
Oh.
God, that sounded so gay when I said.
Are you? Yeah. Well. So is that a big? Are you like a keto diet kind of thing? You eat a lot of protein and.
No, I've always been like an Atkins or.
Okay.
Mostly protein, vegetables. It used to be just. The funny part is that they told me that because when we were younger, during sports, right? To play basketball and I wrestled and I did a couple other things. And during sports, I ate whatever I wanted, but during off season, it was nothing but meat. I was strictly carnivore. But
really?
It wasn't like good carnivore. It wasn't like.
Yeah.
It was like. Let me rephrase that. It was cheeseburgers.
Right.
Like tons of them.
Yeah.
That's what we had, right? And we could
with or without the bun?
Both.
You'd eat the carbs too. Okay. So it wasn't strictly.
It wasn't strictly carnivore. It was more like just no vegetables. Okay. And I think that was what did it.
Wow.
Anyway, long story short, it's good seeing you, dude.
Yeah, you too, man.
That's good to be seen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Especially since you've been in the house for so long, you're not feeling well. It's like, dang,
it's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I have a crew that can actually hold up the shop right now.
Yeah. Are you guys open right now? Don't you usually open later?
We don't know. Well, dude, I'm barely even getting out of bed right now.
Yeah.
Because we're night owls.
Right.
So
Right.
You know, from 12 to like 8 or 9.
Yeah. Well, that's why when you picked that time slot, I was like, dang, that's kind of early for Sabin to be getting up at all.
Well, normally, I was thinking I can get here early. We could chit chat and then I could get to work. But like, I'm just going to go home after this. So.
Oh yeah, you didn't take the day off.
I already scheduled my whole week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
now, are there people though that like? I mean, I know you got a good crew and stuff, but are there people that like? No, I want Sabin to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They specifically want you and nobody else because I'm sure there's things you can do that your crew can't.
Yeah, there is, and vice versa. And vice versa. You know, it's getting really weird. My industry is getting like very specialized, and I can't stand it.
Oh, really?
Like, I personally can't stand that. I hate the idea of one-trick ponies. This is what I do. You know, well, no, you should be able to do whatever walks in the door.
Right.
You know, no, this is what I do. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, as an artist, it's probably nice to be able to expand that too. You probably don't want to get pigeonholed into doing the same thing all the time either. You probably want to be like, oh, I want to try something new. In fact, I've even had some other friends that are tattoo artists, and they'll post on Facebook, hey, I got this idea.
Right.
You know, here's what I want to do. Is anybody interested? Right? It's like I want to do this piece, but it's like I need a very special person who'd be willing to let me do it.
Right.
So
and I get that. I do that all the time. Right.
Okay.
And so, but now I'm kind of like getting past like doing the whole novelty thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the industry as a whole, the clientele industry as a whole, is really into novelty tattoos, which is really weird because like when you and I were younger, like in high school, the tribal aspect and the tramp stamp thing.
I remember that.
That era. So that was those were really novelty. Like almost anybody could do them. They were just a lot of time consuming stuff. Well, now they're no longer time consuming. But anybody can pretty much do them. You don't necessarily need to be a tattoo artist in order to do them. You can just tattoo somebody.
Right.
And the artistry aspect is starting to lose itself a little bit because of the specialty ideas. So like everyone either wants these elaborate things or they want these very simplistic things, but no one just wants regular tattoos anymore.
Oh, okay.
It'll come back around. It always does.
Well, what do you mean? Like, give me the difference between what's a regular tattoo versus...
You know, like it'd be kind of cool if someone came in and wanted like... a memorial piece, but they're like, let's do like a rose with like a banner or like my grandmother's name or something. Something elegant and beautiful and classy.
Okay.
Right? Timeless.
Right.
Something timeless. Instead, they come in and they've got some kind of stupid story of how a feather with birds coming off of it is like a representation of like a certain moment in their grandmother's life when they were alive that reminds them of the one little pigeonholed idea that they have. Oh, by the way, we have to put like some pixie dust because, you know, she was a Disney fan.
Right.
Or something stupid like that. You know what I mean? Like just something really lame. And it's like they're novelty ideas. And so, and really they're all Pinterest ideas. So everyone's coming in, and that's the other thing is that someone comes in and they say, hey, like I want to get a tattoo, and they show me something off of their phone on Pinterest. I'm like, that's great. That's fine. Everyone has reference points.
Right.
But to me, it's kind of like, they won't look at anything that's on the walls.
Oh, okay.
And they almost like bash on the stuff that's on the walls. So it's like, well, there's only 20 copies of this stuff on the walls in existence.
Right.
You know what I mean? 1 million people saw what you just showed me. In fact, I saw it yesterday.
Right, because it's on the internet.
It's on the internet.
Your stuff is more,
it's more
unique
exclusive.
just to you because it's like this is your personal artwork.
Yeah, right. It's more exclusive.
Right.
But they don't want that because they think they didn't find it.
Right.
There's something about this generation today where it's like, well, I didn't find it, so it's not cool. You know, but they want to look like everyone else to make themselves look cool.
Right. Yeah. Explain that. Right.
Yeah.
That's always been the mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Even you and I, like we talk about punk rock and stuff, and we'll get into that, of course. But it's like, I remember in high school, it was like the punks were like being original because they have a mohawk, yet their 4 friends standing next to them also have mohawks. It's like, where's the originality there? It's like in your group, if you just look like a normal dude, you'll be the outcast.
It's tribalism.
Right. Exactly.
It's a form of tribalism.
Right, exactly, you know? So I've never quite understood that.
Is it about the look or is it about the mindset?
Yeah.
Right? Is it a lifestyle or not? Right.
Right, exactly.
I went to a show the other day.
Where'd you go?
I saw Descendants last month.
Oh, with no effects?
No, just the Descendants by themselves.
Okay, where'd they play?
In Ventura, down at the music hall.
Okay.
It was really cool, man.
Because my brother-in-law went to a show.
That was a big festival thing.
Yeah, that's what he went to. And Descendants were there, No Effects was there.
Show. It had like 3 bands. And that was it.
Yeah, he sent me some video of Descendants playing. I was like, dude, they still sound really good, man. It's like,
it was cool. To be honest, I think they're getting a little bit old.
Yeah.
Milo probably sang through like 8 songs. He tried his best, but they have so many classics, dude. Like, so it's like,
oh, dude, their catalog's huge. That's why
it's massive.
You're going back to the early '80s, even the late '70s, and then even to now, they're still releasing new stuff.
Right. But he couldn't sing that long, so at one point, like, he had people that were in the crowd singing the songs because everybody knows the songs, right?
Right.
Great pit. It was a great circle pit. You know me, I've always been in the pit.
Yeah. Well, you got the size for it. I mean, you got no
it.
worry about getting hurt in there.
Right. And I just like to dance,
Yeah.
So it was really good. It was not violent. It wasn't like, I have nothing against violent pits, but if I want to get in one, I want to be in it.
Right.
I don't want to like have to.
Right.
Not a Descendant show. Like, people should be throwing elbows.
Right, and it's usually not violent, though, right? I mean, all the shows I've been to, you don't usually see. I mean, occasionally.
Not at punk shows.
Not at punk shows, right? They usually take care of each other in the pit, and it's like most people aren't in there to hurt each other. Right. It's just you're having a good time.
Well, I was explaining something to somebody, a kid that works for me. His name's Cody. I was explaining to him he's like, "Why do you love this so much?" And I said, "Well, you have to think of it like as a form of church." I said, I'm not trying to compare it to church in any way, shape, or form, but like, hear me out when I say this, because like, when you go to church, you sit there and you hear a word, you hear a message, and there's a camaraderie, and people can come up beside you and they pray on you, and they carry you through this moment of whatever it is that you're going through, and you end up becoming broken on the altar, right? But you're being carried through by God's presence in that moment. Okay. Sure. So, but when you go to a punk show, okay, there is a camaraderie that happens where you're just trying to get through this song, and you're breaking yourself in the in a roundabout term, altar of the song, right? Where you're exhausting yourself and you've got nothing left to give, and someone can come up right next to you and carry you through the song to make sure that you get through it. Yeah. And there's a weird brotherhood that happens there, sisterhood or whatever that happens there. Right. And so it's really comparative. Right. I'm not, obviously they're completely polar opposites to one another, but they're in some ways kind of comparative. Right.
Well, you think like Bro Hymn by Pennywise.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Probably one of the top 10 punk songs in history.
Oh, by far. Easily. Totally. I mean, you just get chills whenever you listen to it. It's
and
just,
you have to sing along.
Right.
You have to.
And you see them play it live, and it's like the chorus is just like, whoa, and like the whole crowd singing that. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like insane.
It's epic.
Yeah. It's an experience,
But to do that was like, to be a part of that and explain it to him in that way. He's like, well, I never looked at it like that. I'm like, well, until you're in it like that, it doesn't matter. And then like circle pits for me, being Native American, dancing in the circles is just natural.
Right. It's running through your veins.
Yeah, that's automatic.
Nice.
Just wait for my feathers to come out.
Man.
Wow. I would say that was racist, but I'm not.
But you can say it, right?
I can say whatever I want.
You're part of the group.
I think that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
I'm part of the marginalized. So
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can get away with anything.
It's whatever.
Yeah. So okay, cool. So we're jumping into music, which is where I start anyway. Okay. Anywhere. But so obviously you and I are punk people. Yeah. We like the punk, and it's kind of cool because I think this is the first time I've had anybody that really. I mean, some people are like, yeah, I like punk, but it's like you're like really into it, like I am. It's like probably your favorite genre of music, right?
It is, yeah.
So do you have like a favorite era? Like, are you more of like an 80s punk guy? Are you more like 90s skate punk kind of stuff? Or are you like more poppy punk for the 2000s? Ooh. I'm guessing not, but
I would say if I had to choose like an era, it would have to be between what happened between 90. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's such a hard genre because I'm like a punk historian. Yeah. Right. So first of all, a lot of people don't even know what punk stands for.
Yeah.
It was an acronym. It meant like people under no kingdom.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Right. So like, so it makes sense, right? Yeah. So like when people came back from the war in England and stuff, it was more of like a political aspect, and there was a couple of bands out there like Apple and Crass and like the earlier like mid 70s, early mid 70s stuff where there was like a political aspect. Right. The music came along because of the subculture. And like I love this line from was it SLC Punk? Remember that movie?
Oh yeah, with Matthew Lillard.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I love this line from this movie that like it may have been invented in Britain, but we do it better, we do it harder, and we do it faster.
Right. Just like pizza.
Yes.
Not Britain, but pizza was invented somewhere else, but it's like America really made it good.
In American terms, we put it on steroids. Right. So around 80, like for me, around like the early 80s, you have like bands like Minor Threat and bands that are coming along that are just super massively huge.
Dude.
Poison Idea started showing up in the mid 80s, like Final Conflict in LA. Like it took punk rock to a whole other thing, right? And so like for me, those bands are really iconic because they created a progression. Punk probably top punk band for me in history is going to be the Zero Boys out of the Midwest.
I've never even heard of them.
Yeah.
I'll write that down so I'll check it out later.
Yeah.
Is that like an 80s band? Or is that, okay.
They're probably formed around 83 to like 88.
Okay.
They're still playing today, actually.
Okay. Have they evolved at all? Like, is their sound different now than it was then?
No, you can still tell it's them.
Okay.
But it's gotten, the older they've gotten, not softer, just more put together it is.
That's usually what happens. It sounds more produced. It sounds, because at first they're just a bunch of kids in a garage just wailing away, you know?
So Vicious Circle, I think, was their first album that came out. And it was the first time I actually had heard progressions in punk rock.
Okay.
What I mean by progression, it was like, it wasn't just like 3 chords done in a stable of 4, and then a verse, the chorus, and then verse, chorus, and the song was done. Like, it actually had like progressions to it. It was done really well.
Right. Where the musicians actually sound like they know what they're doing.
Yeah. done really, really well.
Right.
You can tell everyone has some kind of a musical background. So Zero Boys for me, so they're like huge, but then you get a little bit later on, and I start thinking about some of the other bands that were super agnostic front. And so you start thinking about East Coast hardcore and like the hardcore influence, what that was in DRI. So it's still early 80s, right?
Yeah.
So you get into the 90s and like 88 into the early 90s, and you start seeing our generation start coming forward.
Right.
And so I feel like what we did is we took this idea of what hardcore punk was, which they don't even call it hardcore punk anymore. They call it classic punk now.
Right.
Which infuriates me.
Right.
But
and that's you're talking about that's to describe like the 80s kind of stuff, like Minor Threat and that kind of thing.
That. So I would consider that to be like hardcore, punk rock hardcore.
Right.
And then you put that into the 90s where you had bands that were like strung out, no effects, and like
so good,
like our era, right?
Yeah.
And even some more melodic stuff where it comes to like Peg Boy and Face to Face are coming into it, where it's like they're more emotionally tied, and so it was no longer just political angst or even poverty angst. It was just like there's angst,
right?
And so it was more emotionally tied. It's more driven. Those kinds of bands to me hold this special place in my heart because I was at that age group.
Right. And that's a big deal, right?
Right.
It's kind of where you are when you're...
They catalog with you.
Yes.
And so I know everyone's going to throw like a band like NoFX out there.
Right.
And like Pennywise, for sure.
Right. Bad Religion, some of the big names.
Bad Religion, those kind of... And even Bad Religion was rounder in the 80s and they evolved. Their earlier stuff was way better.
Yeah. We'll go back to that. I want to talk about your... Well, let's go there now. So you tell me what Bad Religion, you're a fan, obviously.
Yeah, so
what's
early
your
stuff.
What's your favorite Bad Religion album?
So, Suffer.
Okay, the first one. If you don't count the earliest,
how
could hell be any worse than some
like
of those?
85 and like all
right,
all that kind of stuff.
Because that was a very different sound for them. I like a lot of that stuff on there, of course, but then Suffer was kind of their first. That was their first Epitaph release, I believe.
Right. And then No Control came after that.
No Control,
and everything after that to me was garbage.
Really?
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was. I have a special story about this.
Okay, let's hear it.
So. Hollywood Palladium, it was 1996. And me and a guy named, I don't know if you remember Guppy. Anyway, me and the guy
I'm guessing that's not his real name.
No, Mike Fisher. me and Guppy, he had tickets. He was a huge Bad Religion fan.
Okay.
Like, all over the place.
Yeah. Did he go to high school with us?
No, he's a little older than us.
Okay.
But we were just sitting there chit-chatting, and he's like, dude, I got tickets to Bad Religion down in the Hollywood Palladium. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going with you. I don't care what you say. He's like, all right, cool.
And what year is this?
In 96.
Right? Oh, okay. So it's like Stranger Than Fiction era.
Stranger Than Fiction era, yeah. 21st Century Digital Boy, like, all that kind of stuff was just about to head out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it was like in a weird pivotal spot for them.
Yeah.
And they were changing as a band. We'd seen them live a couple times, and they were great. This is the first time I'd ever paid more than $20 for any kind of punk show, so it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Saw them at the Palladium. There was a spot where homie gets up there, and he's like talking for like 25 minutes.
Greg Graffin?
Yeah, man.
Oh, really? Little mini sermon?
Giving a sermon. And like... You know, dude, punk rockers had voices back in those days.
Right.
Like, and people that were in the crowd had just as much of a right to have a say as the people who with the microphone.
Right.
That's changed.
Oh, yeah.
But I got tired of it. And everybody around me who was tired of it, I could see it, right?
Yeah.
So I yelled, shut up and play an effing song.
Nice.
Right? And it was, everyone could hear it, dude.
Yeah.
And the homie goes, shut up and play a song. It's guys like you, sir, that don't get it. It's guys like you, sir, that are just here for the pose.
Wow.
He called me out in front of like
all those people,
hundreds of people,
wow.
dude. And I was just like, seriously, dude?
Yeah.
I've been buying your albums and your records and like listening to you. Now it's like I'm giving you a big middle finger right there, right? Because punk, right? You don't like me, I don't like you. At least I know where I stand,
right?
And ever since then, for me, I've been like, screw Bad Religion.
Wow.
But well, that's a personal thing,
right?
But their music is just like
it's changed a lot. Yeah.
But then again, it hasn't.
Yeah.
So once it got into that one point of everything past 21st century, right? Every album from there sounds the same.
Right. So I would go with I think their sound really started to change a lot with Generator.
Okay.
So you got No Control. I think Against the Grain was a good album.
Parts of it were good.
Parts of it were good. Yeah. But you could definitely see kind of the shift a little bit in some of the songs. But then Generator came out. That was definitely more melodic, more produced, and then when Recipe for Hate came out, which don't get me wrong, I love these albums. I even love their new stuff. So I'm a big Bad Religion fan, but I definitely have my times where I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I think for me, Bad Religion is the band that that exposed me to punk to begin with. Okay, and it was later for me. Like this, we're talking like 94, 95 for me. Yeah. I was like a junior in high school. Yeah, you're a big bloomer. Yeah, because I was all hip hop, nothing. That was all I listened to. It was just hip hop until grunge came. And then, ironically, I'm at a show to see Pearl Jam in San Francisco when I'm like 16, and Bad Religion opens up for him. Stranger Than Fiction.
I remember that. I remember that tour.
Yeah. So Stranger Than Fiction had just come out. Yeah. Bad Religion came out and blew my mind. I had never heard anything, and that was my first exposure. I didn't know Suffer and No Control and Against the Grain yet. That was my first exposure to it. So then when I went back and I started buying all their albums from the beginning, and I was like, okay, this stuff is and I probably hold like No Control, Against the Grain is probably my favorite era. But then when they signed to the major, where they had, I think Recipe for Hate was the first one. Yeah. Stranger Than Fiction, they blew up, and then The Gray Race was where it really shifted for me. Right. I wasn't a huge fan of that album. They had a couple of decent songs on there, but it sounded way too produced. It sounded way too commercial, and and I don't know if that's what they were going for or not. I know within the band they had a lot of friction because a lot of that. I think one of the guys even left.
I think the drummer left
at some point. Was out.
But they've been through so many drummers.
Of course, yeah. He's just a drummer.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, exactly. So but I think at some point, like maybe, I don't know, like at some point they left. They went back to just Epitaph. And then they started releasing stuff that sounded more like Recipe for Hate, Stranger Than Fiction, and not so much like The Gray Race and No Substance. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But they're definitely not my favorite punk band of all time by any means. Anyway, but I haven't had an experience like that. I've seen them live only once, and it was quite a bit later. It was probably 98, 99 at Ventura Theater.
I love that spot.
Dude, it's one of the best venues ever.
Isn't it?
All the best shows I've seen were there. Yeah, it's just such a cool thing. Oh, yeah. Especially like me. So I'm not really a pit guy, really. I don't mind being down next to it, but I don't really go in there, really. I like Ventura Theater. I'll hang out up in the balcony. Yeah. I was like, I got great view. I can hear great. I can see. There's so
many tiers to it too. Like you can actually get up on the pit without being in the pit because there's a stair tier. Right. And so it's where the orchestra used to be is where the pit is, right? And the whole theater spot.
Right.
So there's that first level of being close to the stage, right? It's probably the best views. And sound quality.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It's a really cool venue, and I like I said,
I've seen all there recently too.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been there since the night you were there with 5 Iron and MXPX and Dogwood. That was great, dude.
Dogwood's one of my top 5 favorite punk bands ever.
When it comes to Christian punk, Dogwood is probably on the top.
They are.
Yeah,
they are
hands down. Their lyrics and their passion and their songs are so meaningful and just like, oh my gosh, dude. Even later stuff, dude. Like even the Seismic album, I love that album.
Oh my gosh! But like, dude, for me, even before I was saved, right? I remember hearing, "I killed the Son of God today," and I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Does that not just pierce your soul?
That song specifically drove me, and when I got saved and I'd heard it again, I was just like, "Oh my god!" Yeah. Like, how cool is this?
Right.
Yeah, it was just so cool, man. Like that, Dogwood is just easily top 5 best punk bands for me. Maybe top 2 most influential for me. Okay. Out of all the bands.
What would you say was the other one?
Zero Boys for me.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go. If I'm gonna say top, see, for me it's a genre thing, like time wise. So if I'm gonna say like most influential, Zero Boys is gonna be there. Dogwood because I just think that like they were able to cross over to both sides. So even if you weren't saved, you were like, these guys are.
Well, that's what's cool, right?
But yeah,
they can appeal to a non-Christian audience as well.
Yeah, so Dogwood. Then I'm going to probably say Minor Threat.
Okay.
Because they brought the straight edge aspect into it.
Yeah.
From there, I'm probably going to go Final Conflict.
Okay.
And then probably Strung Out.
Oh, nice.
Nice in that era. Like Another Day in Paradise was really good for me.
Yeah. So we got. Well, first I'll say that mostly for me, it's like 90s skate punk is my favorite.
Okay.
But there are some 80s bands that I just love. Minor Threat's one of them. Minor Threat is probably my favorite of that era.
Right.
Dude, I mean, they had one album, but it was just, I mean, every song on there is just
technically 3
great.
albums that they put together that we got to hear.
If you have the complete Discord set or whatever. I think the other ones were like EPs and stuff, right?
EPs, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But there's like, 20 songs or something total in their whole catalog or whatever. And you listen to the later stuff like Salad Days and Good Guys,
so great.
That is cool, but it's definitely not like filler or, Guilty of Being White or some of that stuff.
Minor Threat's probably out of any band in history has probably got the most. I want to say this just right. There's probably no other band that's ever translated exactly the raw emotion as well as what that was.
Oh, dude!
I've never heard it anywhere else.
Right.
There's Ian MacKaye, when he's singing those songs, there's so much going on, and you can just sense it.
Oh yeah,
and it translates.
Yes,
it translates so well.
One of the kids who were feeling that way connected with that
years later, even.
Right.
So even when you were, this is 10 years after our generation. So even hearing that when we were younger, it was like, what?
Yeah,
this guy's pissed.
Yeah.
I understand this piss.
Right.
I mean, I feel this piss. I don't even know if I could express this kind of piss, but he's doing it for me.
Right.
And yeah, that was cool, man.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Did you ever see the documentary Another State of Mind?
Yeah.
So in that scene where because they're touring, I think it's Youth Brigade and Social D, right? And then
I played with Youth Brigade when I was in a band.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we played with him in Guadalupe Theater actually.
Okay, we just drove by that the other day, and I was telling my kids I used to have punk shows here.
Yeah.
Didn't like Propaganda play there one year or something?
I threw meat at them.
Yeah. That's right. See, I wasn't there, but I remember hearing that.
Yeah,
because they were like animal rights activists and stuff, dude. I love Propaganda though. Their music is their first 2 albums is fantastic. Are horrible. Yeah, they're activists, but
their music is great though.
But anyway, in Another State of Mind, that documentary, I love the part where they're playing a show with Minor Threat because they're going through DC and stuff, and I don't remember the why, but for whatever reason, maybe they were over time or something, but they cut off Ian's mic.
Well, it broke.
Or it broke something.
Yeah,
he just belted it out with no mic.
And the crowd joined in.
Oh my gosh,
everybody
dude.
knew it.
Epic.
What happened?
Yeah. It was
that's
so
great, right?
Awesome. Yeah. So great. Oh my gosh.
Dude.
Yeah. And that's timeless, right? I can still put that on today and be like, oh, this still rocks.
Yeah.
This still rocks the same way it did back when I first heard it,
Yeah.
So, So let's talk about Strung Out a little bit. So Strung Out. So that's right when I came in. 90s skate punk, right? You got Epitaph, you got Fat Records, you got some stuff on Lookout, you got like these labels that were getting big at that time. Right. And Strung Out being one of the first bands I'd ever heard, I got I think it was Physical Fatness, or it was like one of the Fat Records compilations.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it had Good Riddance, Strung Out, it had some of these other bands on there. Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah, see, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got to play with those guys?
Oh, a couple times.
Okay. What was the band you were in at that point?
For Instance. Yeah,
okay.
We played a few. We were like that 88, 92, like hardcore punk.
Yeah. I remember seeing you guys had an album, right? Or
3 of them.
Okay, I remember seeing one at Boo Boo Records long time ago. I was talking to.
Should have bought it, man.
I should have. That was before we'd started hanging out as adults, because we knew who each other were in high school, but it's not like we hung out in high school,
All over the place.
It wasn't. Yeah, and it wasn't until later. Well, sure. But I mean, I think it was more later on that it was the Christianity that kind of brought us together, as adults in life. But so I remember seeing it there. And that looks like Sabin. I didn't know he was in a band. Like I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
And what did you do in the band?
I sang.
You were a singer.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still have those, by the way?
You know what? That's why I said you should have bought it.
Oh, is it like no way, no how?
So there's a lot of people out there that have them and that are not sharing them. Like I actually have the original rights. It's a funny story about that too.
Right. Well, you think you should? I mean.
No, So all 4 of us have when we got Impressed, we had our first, the biggest album we had made was our self-titled.
Are these full-length albums?
Yeah,
okay.
They're full-length. And but we recorded it at Orange Whip and then going to Capitol Records to get it mastered, which we paid a lot for, like a whole lot of nothing. But it was a really well-produced album, and Out of Hand did the same thing, and so we kind of followed Out of Hand's model right before
They just
us.
released their unreleased album. Did you see that?
Yeah, Butch did it. Yeah. He's still holding on.
I got it.
Did you? Good for you.
Yeah, I was like, cool.
But they give you a CD with like time stamp and the stamps of like or stamps on the songs like these are this is your rights basically.
Right.
And this is what the masters, and you get to own the rights to the masters. There was 4 of us that got it, and that was it. That's the only one I had now, and it's got like a huge scratch right through the center.
Oh no!
It's a CD, right?
What a bummer.
I know it's a bummer. And so there's a bunch of my friends out there that actually have a bunch of them, and I have some. I tried to like upload it onto my iTunes, and like the music's on there, but it's really digitized.
Yeah.
And it's got that thing going on, and so it just ruins it.
That's what I say. If somebody had like a master copy or at least a decent copy, then you could put it online as a good digital copy, and then it'd be there for everybody.
It would be great,
and it'd be solid.
I think Damien was trying to do that for a while, but whatever.
Okay. Was he in the band?
Yeah, he was the bass player.
Who else was in the band? Is anybody I know?
So there was Brian McGeehee. Was a guitar player.
He's a what?
He was a guitar player.
Yeah,
and then Billy Noble is the drummer.
Oh, I know Billy Noble.
So Billy's still playing in a band called Hostile Takedown.
Okay.
And they're amazingly beautiful.
Is it like punk rock or what?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Hostile Takedown?
Hostile Takedown, yeah. You can actually get their stuff on iTunes.
Okay.
That's actually almost like a super band because it's got Mark Cruz from Out of Hand.
Okay.
But he's singing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jason, who's like old school JD, who's been in and out of some punk bands up in Lompoc, because he moved down to Orchid. And then I don't know if you remember Ron Vicente, redhead guy.
No.
He used to play all kinds of metal when we were younger.
Okay.
He was always playing guitar. But Ron was in the Undisputed and a couple of other bands when we were growing up. It was really good. Anyways.
Yeah.
But back to the
your albums.
So we played with a couple of good bands. Jughead's Revenge, that's another band from that era.
Yeah. Well, that was Nitro Records. That's another good label from that band.
Nitro, there was Wingnut Records. Screw 32 was a big influence on me too.
Okay.
I love them.
Yeah. Short-lived, right? 2 albums?
Short-lived.
Yeah. They had one on Fat too. I think their second album was on Fat.
Their second album was on Fat. Their first album was way better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I played a bunch of shows with those guys. Like
that's
Good
cool.
Riddance.
Yeah.
I mean, Russ and I didn't really get along politically.
Right.
But
he's kind of an activist too, right?
He's a huge activist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when they got Sean as their drummer, Sean Sellers, he was really cool. Sean is actually. So we played with the Nerve Agents and Good Riddance in San Luis at the Grange Hall. And the last show that had actually been at that Grange Hall was Black Flag, something like 30 years earlier.
Wow.
In San Luis. And there was a riot at that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so he came out, a Nunschool production thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
he did all the shows back then.
He did back then.
Yeah.
And so Russ came out and he told that history of it, and I was just like, "That's really cool. We got to open here, right?"
Right.
And I'm not trying to brag, but we cut throats, dude. That night.
Oh yeah.
We cut throats that night.
Nice.
We set it up really well. It was such a good dance night.
Nice.
And I was talking to Sean before their set. Well, in between our set and the Nerve Agents, because it was us, Nerve Agents, then Good Riddance. And Sean, their drummer, was like, "Hey man, you ever listen to any other kinds of music?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sometimes." And he goes, "Name me a band that I would, by looking at you, that I would never think."
You're like, I'm a huge Spice Girls fan.
Oh my gosh, dude. No, dude, I said Roger and Zapp, bro.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah.
And he'd never heard of him.
What?
And so
never heard
like,
of Zapp.
And they go, "Roger and Zapp, really?" And I said, like, Dad's band, Gat band. I'm like, because like I grew up Cholo.
Right.
So like, being from Guad, like all my cousins and stuff, they were.
Yeah.
I had one cousin that got me into punk rock because he was a Cholo that was like, "Dude, it's the greatest thing, Holmes." I'm like, "What do you mean? So these kids just go to a spot and they beat each other up and it's legal."
That was the draw.
That was his draw.
Nice.
So one night, so my first punk show I ever went to, I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. It was No Effects.
Nice.
Jungle Fish and Assault.
Okay.
And I think Ex Oblivion at a Lompoc. But it was kind of late. And that was at the Veterans Hall here in Santa Maria.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah. And Yeah, No Effects was just turning into a 4-piece band.
So you're 12, so it's what? What year's that?
God, 80.
It's got to be
88.
Okay.
88.
So it's like ripped.
He was babysitting me.
Who was?
My cousin.
Oh, okay. And so he just took you to the show?
And he's like, yeah, bro, it's cool. Because he was like a suicidal punk rocker. Like, he's a cholo. He fell in love with suicidal tendencies. Right. And he's like, these guys are violent. It's fun, eh? So his whole thing was like just to go there and beat somebody up. Right, and like, be cool with it. And he thought that's what it was about, right?
Yeah.
I remember going and just seeing the circle pit for the first time and just being like scared.
Yeah.
And then he just kicked me in it. And I was just like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah, and the rest is history, right?
The rest is history. So I don't know where I was coming off the tangent from that.
Well, we were talking about bands you played with.
So Roger and Zapp, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like all my other cousins and uncles and stuff, they were like listening to like all that kind of stuff. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're cruising down the boulevard, dude.
Yeah.
So I'd go cruising with them growing up. And so like, I was always like this cholo looking dude that was into like punk and metal.
Right.
And then when we got to high school, like I just gave up the cholo aspect.
Okay.
And so
went full punk at that point.
Punk, yeah.
Nice.
And so,
yeah.
But it was fun, dude. Like, I still kind of, in some ways, dress a little bit cholo. I still wear my Dickies. I still wear like, you know.
Oh, you're thug life, man. If I see you, I'm like, you're thug life.
No, I'm not like dad life these days.
But still a little bit of thug life.
Yeah, it's always going to be there.
So I would love to get my hands on some of that. If you ever get digital copies of any of that music you guys did or anything. I mean, anything. Oh, yeah, dude. I would love to hear some of it.
Billy has it. Okay. God, like I said, a bunch of my friends have it.
Yeah.
That I gave away my last copy, thinking I had another copy. You know how that goes.
Oh yeah. And
I never got it on the other thing.
Yeah, because I love that kind of thing. I mean, I love going to shows. It's more cool when I know somebody that's in the band, of course. But I mean, even just like going to towns and stuff and listening to some opener, it's like, and they got a demo tape, and it's like I still have a lot of those demos. It's like, dude, because I'm like, how many people have even heard this?
Oh yeah.
Like I might be when I lived in San Diego for like 8 months. The scene down there was awesome. Right. Like almost everybody I knew was in a punk band down there. Right. And some of it is just great.
Soma was amazing.
Oh yeah, Soma had some good shows down there. Amazing, yeah. Oh yeah.
I think we played there once.
Okay.
It was so great.
Nice.
It's the Soma was awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the venue. I think Stone Temple Pilots actually did a video there.
Oh really?
Sex type thing.
Oh yeah.
I think that the very first video that they put out on MTV was at the Soma.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, it was just them on stage.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I remember the video. I remember the video specifically because that's when his hair was white.
Yeah.
It was buzzed really short, but it was white. And then after that, it was always like the deep red that he always had his hair.
Weird, like pinkish, burgundy.
Yeah. Because when Sex Type Thing came out, right, it was like, it was a hit. But I don't think it was till Plush. That's when they just blew up. As soon as that song hit, I think it was the second single. They released Sex Type Thing, and then they released Plush, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is like. Then they were like, woo, and then, but of course, they were like the only LA like grunge band that was really on par. I think they're LA. Maybe it's San Diego.
I think they're out of San Diego.
They're not Seattle, I think is the point I'm making. Because all the other ones were Seattle at that point.
And that's why I actually like them a lot.
Right.
Because they had a different flair.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And an attitude for that matter.
Right. Like, and then they changed so much with their second album and beyond. Like, I don't think anything ever sounded like Core ever again.
No.
Like with Purple, it was very... Still great, don't get me wrong, but his vocals were more... What's the word? They weren't as, grungy and like raspy. It was more like he was singing songs like Pretty Penny and like, some of these other, which were great songs.
Right.
But it just wasn't quite on par with what, and I don't know if with Core they were trying to sound more like the grunge of Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains.
Being relevant to the moment.
Maybe. Just be like, okay, this is what's popping off right now. Or maybe it was the record producers like, okay, you need to start singing a little grungier, you need a little harder.
It's almost they went from like this grunge thing into transitioning into almost a Red Hot Chili Peppers type of vibe.
Uh-huh.
And they try to mix the two.
Right.
If you think about that song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to do.
What is that song? Interstate Love Song?
Yeah. So
that's off Purple.
But that could totally be a Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Totally be.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's got the same chorus, the same same note structures. It's got everything you could possibly imagine.
Right.
But being a Chili Pepper song, except Flea not freaking killing it.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, Flea's probably one of the best bass players in history.
Well, let's hear who your favorite bass players are. We're jumping all over the place. I love this. This is great.
So Flea is probably the best, in my opinion, the best bass player in history.
I'm going to see if you're going to hit my favorite or not.
I don't like him, but he's the top 5 for me.
He's awesome.
Is Les Claypool.
Awesome. Okay, he's awesome too. Mm-hmm.
But Flea's probably my favorite. Okay. After that, Bootsy Collins.
Okay.
Right. So Bootsy was just it for me.
Right. Mine's a punk guy. Mine's in a punk band. My favorite one.
Who's that?
So I always put Les Claypool and I always put Flea up there because they're amazing, obviously. But I love Matt Freeman.
Matt Freeman's dope.
Matt Freeman, whether it's Op Ivy or Rancid, because you can just hear that bass line going through each song, like they're singing and they're playing riffs and everything, and you hear in the background, like it's just constantly going. It's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing to me to listen to. I think to myself, how does he do that? This guy's insane.
Even Op Ivy did just another crowd, right?
Right. Yeah, dude, awesome, so awesome.
It's so dope.
So let's go into some. We're going to get back to Strung Out because that's where we started. I'm not going to leave that. Okay. But let's talk about some of those Lookout bands that from the early days, like Op Ivy started off on
Lookout Records. So I mean, technically, Green Day was a part of that.
They were. They came out of that.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to say Green Day they opened for Op Ivy on their final show at Gilman. Yeah. But which is that whole scene to me. I'd never lived there, but
Gilman?
Well, it's not even open now, right?
No, there's still shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
They closed for a long time. Yeah. Maybe they reopened.
Yeah, Gilman still has shows.
Yeah. To go there, you mean?
It's just everything. It's a pseudo-intellectual hellhole.
Okay. But some great bands came out of there.
Great bands came out of there.
Yeah.
So Lookout Records, right? So let's take Op Ivy and so you have the Queers.
Yeah.
The Queers were on Lookout Records.
Oh yeah, love the Queers.
Technically, Swinging Utters was on Lookout Records at one point.
Oh, were they? Okay, I didn't know that.
I love Swinging.
I do too. I always take that. People always talk about Dropkick Murphys. There's a similarity there.
Yeah.
And people, Dropkick's off. I like Dropkick, but I'll take Swinging Utters over them any day.
Yeah. They're more of a Scottish sound.
Right.
Especially like Streets of San Francisco. That second album.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
That's probably my favorite one. That one or the Juvenile Product of the Working Class is my two favorites.
Good stuff. So Suicide Machines.
Oh yeah.
Were being, do you remember them? They were being looked at by Lookout.
Okay.
And they decided not to go that way.
Okay.
But I remember talking to God, what was his name? I think it was Matt Cord, I think his name is. He was the drummer for them at the time.
Okay.
And I met him through Drunken Public. Do you remember them?
The band Drunken Public?
Yeah. So like, they're from here. They're from Lompoc and like.
Oh really? I didn't know that. No.
Lompoc and Orchid. Yeah, man.
Interesting. Okay.
So super interesting, right? So I met him. I can't remember his name right now. Greg Ware.
Okay.
So he was a guitar player for Drunken Public, and so I met him through there at a show one time, and they were coming through, and they played up in San Luis at the Achievement House. And so no one had heard of the Suicide Machines, and they're like, dude, they're trying to sign us to like 3 different things right now, and Lookout was one of them.
Right.
They would have done well on Lookout.
Yeah, because they kind of had that punk ska sound like Op Ivy, right?
Yeah, they're third generation wave.
Right.
You know, I personally, Op Ivy's just classic, dude.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I think they invented that, if you ask me. I'm sure there might have been people before that weren't as well known, but they invented something that was totally different.
They took what the Specials did with that second wave of ska
and made it punk.
Right.
Exactly.
They gave it attitude.
Right.
They gave it a good attitude.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really good. And Op Ivy doesn't get enough credit for being like by far the best. I don't care what anyone says. People are going to say like Sublime, and like you don't have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, but there probably wouldn't have been a Sublime if it wasn't for Op Ivy.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? So,
not at all. Op Ivy is by far the godfathers and originators and the best ska punk band in history.
Right.
I don't even consider Sublime to be a ska punk band.
Oh, really?
Well, if you listen to the majority of their stuff, it's more like hip hop infused.
Yeah, it's got the scratching and the DJ thing, and especially like 40 Ounces to Freedom. And
it's extremely produced, right? And I wouldn't even consider them to be even close to the punk genre, just because they have a couple of songs that have like a double time like drum beat to it. Doesn't make you punk.
They probably have like 3 songs in their whole catalog that you could consider punk rock. You know, like New Thrash is kind of a punk, but that was the point of it, right?
Yeah.
On 40 Ounces.
Well, they had that one song that was on Punk Sucks compilation. I can't remember what it is right now, but they had one song in there, and that's probably their best punk song.
Okay, but I don't remember that.
But by that token, you can call Red Hot Chili Peppers a punk rock song because of what they did with that Stevie Wonder jam.
Which one?
Teach us, keep on.
Oh, Higher Ground.
Higher Ground.
Yeah.
Because the end of that song turns super punk rock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so it's punk now?
That's a great song, too.
It's a great song.
That, to me, that's where they found their sound, and then Blood Sugar came after that.
Yeah, Blood Sugar, Sex Magic after that just kind of like formed, right?
And that's the best one, I think.
You could hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. Because they were more like funk stuff before that. They were like produced by George Clinton, and they were like very different. You listen to like, what are those early albums? Freaky Styley and some of those early albums, like nothing at all. But so back to Lookout. Okay. So my favorite band of all time is a band called 15. And I don't know if you've ever heard, they were on Lookout pretty much their last two albums I think were on Sub City. Okay. But they started off on Lookout. So Crimpshrine. Okay, so Crimpshrine started with Jesse Michaels, Jeff Ott, and Aaron Elliott. Okay. Jesse Michaels left, started Op Ivy, and they were left without a singer. So then Jeff Ott started singing, and they bring some other guys in. So Crimpshrine had a pretty good run on Lookout, and they underground, of course, playing Gilman and stuff. And then once Crimpshrine broke up, Jeff Ott started 15, and he was the lead guitarist and vocalist for 15. And then they had a slew of albums.
I gotta check them out.
It's good, dude.
Are they on iTunes?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Okay,
I'm sure they are. But I mean, it was really cool because you listen to them. I've always been a big fan of bands with two singers, especially if they sound very different. Yeah. You know, because I love that. Especially if it's like a girl and a guy singer. That's really cool when they bounce off each other. But with 15, it sounds like two singers, but it's only the one guy. He has like a really raspy voice, like guttural, and then he also has like a I hate to call it a clean vocalist because it's not that kind of band at all. It's more of a punk rock band. But they're pretty political and stuff too. So I don't know if you'll dig their lyrics if you're not into the political lyrics and stuff. But
it can't be any worse than like Apple or Cross, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I listen to that stuff. I get everyone has the right to have to say whatever they want.
Sure.
You know what I mean? For
sure.
And
a lot of times I'll just listen to it. Well, like Propagandhi. I love their first two albums. To me, are awesome.
Musically
great.
They're like,
you know,
top notch.
Yeah, but their lyrics are very preachy, right?
You're over yourself.
But the thing is, when I first started listeing to them, I was a vegetarian myself.
Oh, were you?
Oh yeah, I was vegetarian for like 16 years. Yeah. Like I can't handle this. Yeah, I was a vegetarian probably from 16 until like 32. I was a vegetarian. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Not vegan, but vegetarian.
I can understand being a vegetarian.
Yeah,
vegan is just stubborn.
Well, vegan is like, even though I believe, because I was an animal rights activist, I was like, oh, I kind of feel like it's even worse to rape them, right, of their dairy and all that stuff. That was the terminology back then. Yeah. But I could never bring myself to give up cheese, dude. I'm just like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then you try like the vegan cheeses, and you're like,
it's not cheese.
It's just not the same thing.
Don't call it cheese.
Yeah, just call it something else. Yeah. But all right,
so where were we? Man, I'm 15, man. I got to check them out.
Yeah, I recommend The Choice of a New Generation is the one you want to hit first. That's
it's kind of hard to find new music and like try and find the bands these days. So like modern Christian metal today is like so good.
Okay, like what kind of bands?
War of Ages.
Okay,
love them, dude. Their first The Pride and the Wicked. You need to check that out.
The Pride and the Wicked?
Yeah, Pride of the Wicked. Right? Mm-hmm. It's their first two albums is War of Ages, dude. Like it's amazingly good metal, dude.
Okay.
Sleeping Giant.
I've heard of that one.
Love those guys,
yeah.
dude.
In fact, I think I've heard some of that. Yeah. Somebody showed me
everything that's on Face Down Records.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And I think they're killing it, man. I think that they're doing a good job of doing that.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I hear that kind of stuff and I start thinking of like good guitar players from the past. Mm-hmm. Like you were talking about who's the best bass player,
right?
Like, okay, so my question for you: top 5 guitar players in history.
Oh shoot!
Come on,
that's hard. That's even harder for me because I don't play a lot of instruments as it is. But the only thing I've ever played is bass. Okay. So I notice bass more in songs than I do guitar.
Filter it out, yeah.
Especially when you listen to a lot of music that doesn't really have like lead. What's what I'm looking for? A solo, like a what the heck's that called? I'm drawing a blank. Like Metallica.
I'm waiting for you.
Yeah. And they come in with like when Kirk Hammett would just go nuts in Metallica.
The lead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lead. Is that what it's called? A lead?
Yeah, it's a lead. Yeah.
There's another word for it. Am I just blanking?
A riff?
No, not a riff.
Solo?
Solo. Maybe. Solo? Guitar solo?
Yeah.
Maybe guitar solo.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's harder for me to come up with that. But plus, I don't think I really have a good enough grasp on all that. So who would you say?
Oh man, so I'm always about who did the most. I'm totally a community person, right? Mm-hmm. Like the way I think. So like, who had the most influence,
right,
on a specific genre or even like all music? Mm-hmm. So I hate to say this because I don't think he's the best, but the most influential in history has got to be Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, he's.
But I wouldn't say he's the best.
Right. But he was doing things nobody else was at the time, right? He was so
innovative.
So, yeah.
It was the innovation aspect of it. And what it did is it drew a lot. I mean, we wouldn't even have distortion today if it wasn't for him.
Right.
So, I mean, we would probably, but he's a guy that was chosen to do it, apparently.
Right.
But best guitar player in history, Stevie Ray Vaughan Jr.
Okay.
Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
If one song in particular, I don't care what, everyone's like, oh, he's a good blues player. Mm-hmm. No, he's the best.
Right.
All right?
Right.
Specifically this song called Dirty Pool.
Okay.
He's playing, like, you really listen to what he's doing the whole time, it's nonstop. Like, he's not stopping.
Right.
I even heard an interview of Eddie Van Halen saying, like, he's better than I am.
Oh, yeah.
So, and the stuff that he was doing and the bends and the riffs and, like, and just how good he was. Mm-hmm. And, like, he had this complete phobia of being up in front of other people.
Oh, see, I love hearing that.
And so, like,
I think that's cool.
Have you ever watched, like, old stuff on YouTube of him, like, his eyes are closed almost the whole time?
Okay.
And, like, he's doing this stuff with his eyes closed. Mm. And then if you still go back and watch him again, like, he's playing some of these things that people can't even play normally, like, behind his back or behind his head, or, like, he's just the best.
Oh, yeah.
Just the best.
Yeah.
I know people are going to put, like, Eric Clapton up there, and I'm not.
No.
No, because I just think that he's taken stuff that other people have done before him and just cleaned it up.
Right.
Now, Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden.
Oh, okay.
Ugh.
Yeah.
You know, Dave Murray from Iron Maiden. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna put them at 2 and 3.
Yeah, those guys are.
They're just Robert Johnson, another blues guy, like really old school blues guy.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have modern day blues the way it is today.
Right.
So that leads into like this idea of we wouldn't even have rock and roll.
Right.
So, are
you a blues fan? Do you like to listen to blues music?
I do. I'm not deep heavy into
it. Right.
But I'm super into knowing where stuff comes from.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't want to just be like, oh, this is cool, but why is it cool?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what led this up to being cool? Like, Not just like because I think so. Like,
right. Well, that's evidence.
Well, that's enough.
Because I think so.
In today's world, maybe.
Right? Yeah.
But it's not enough for me.
Whatever you think is truth. Yeah. You know, whatever's true to you is true.
Well, I believe the truth is that Stevie Ray Vaughan is the best guitar player in history.
Therefore, it's true.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, you probably have a lot of backup with that one.
My fifth favorite bass player is going to be Sting.
Sting?
Yeah.
Really?
With the Police.
Okay.
Only with the Police.
Okay.
His solo stuff is garbage.
Yeah.
Sidetrack back on that.
Yeah. This is cool. I like that we're bouncing around so much. It's kind of it's awesome.
But as far as like other guitar players, like there's so many out there, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously Eddie Van Halen I'm going to put up there with the riff. Dimebag Darrell for metal.
Oh yeah.
Has probably come up with some of the most crunchiest, thickest, freaking.
Wasn't he Pantera?
Yeah, Pantera.
Okay. Yeah.
Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. Again, another one. He brought this grunginess to everything, you know. So there's a lot of guitar players that are out there.
Well, a lot of people credit Black Sabbath with creating that genre, really.
Oh yeah,
I know, like Metallica will say that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like most people don't give the Scorpions enough credit. You need to go back and listen to the Scorpions from like '73. They were doing metal before metal was metal.
Right. But they're Australian, so we don't care about that.
They're Austrian.
Oh, Austrian?
Yeah, that's why there's such a big metal thing over there. Right? It makes sense, right? But everyone thinks of like Rock You Like a Hurricane and that kind of stuff. No, dude, Scorpions were doing metal back in the early 70s.
That was their big hit ballad, right? That they write.
That's what those are come out stuff, right?
Right.
So, but like you listen to like Sales of Sharon or whatever, and it's 1973 and it's way ahead of its time and it makes Deep Purple and like Sabbath look like kiddie play.
Right.
It's just really good.
Yeah.
I don't think they didn't know it was metal. They were just experimenting with stuff. So.
They were just playing what they wanted to play, and it came out as that. There was probably no label for it at the time.
Right. Worst singer in history.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, God.
Not a big fan?
This from Scorpions?
Yeah.
His voice is horrible.
Yeah.
He can't even pronounce the words. Let me understand he's Austrian, but like, it's like a clean version of Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to sing freaking metal.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to
change.
But see, I'm one of those guys. That's probably the only songs I've ever heard. So I'll have to check out what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, the early stuff. Dude.
Yeah, I've heard "Rock You Like a Hurricane" and "Winds of Change."
Yes, specifically type of "Sails of Sharon."
Sails of Sharon.
Yeah, it's
sails like on a boat, or sails like okay.
And then Sharon is CHARON.
Like Charon?
Charon, yeah.
Okay.
And then it's really good. You'll see where like Dio and like gets all their stuff from is from them. It's way ahead of its time. I remember it was 73 when it was originally written.
Right.
So it's like, what? Like people were still doing hippie music back then.
Right.
So, yeah, different story.
Yeah.
Now, best singers.
That's rough too, because you have so many different genres of music and they fit different things. But to me, there's a lot of singers that I think to myself, they're not really a good singer, but the way they sing fits what they're doing.
Agreed.
Like you got somebody like Bob Dylan, right? Like if somebody like Bob Dylan showed up on American Idol today, he would get Simon Cowell would laugh him off the stage. Yeah. But with what he was doing in the 60s with his music and that style that he was creating, who else is going to sing it like that?
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of singers like that, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, that's I guess where the artistry actually comes in.
Yeah.
At that point.
Sure.
You're creating something that people understand as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, Al Green. Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury.
Oh yeah, Freddie Mercury is amazing.
Christina Aguilera.
Dude,
I'm not even joking.
No, I'm right with you.
Dude, her range is the chick from Four Non Blondes. Her range is insane.
Yeah, hey,
dude. What's going on?
Yeah, that was a jam back in the day, man.
That was again another song that kind of like another song that was just great.
Yeah, one hit wonder. But like
again, Iron Maiden for me. Bruce Dickinson. Bruce Dickinson's probably one of the best singers, and best metal singer in history.
Right.
So
yeah. But Christina Aguilera, I seriously agree with you, because I've told that, because back then it was like the main pop singers were like her and Britney Spears and like all, and I always said to myself, right, like Britney Spears. I mean, there's obviously a market for what she's doing, but I never listened to her and thought to myself, like you really sound good. Well, Christina Aguilera's sex sells too, of course, but she actually has talent.
A lot of it.
And her range, like you said, is unbelievable. I always bring up the song, it's not even her song, but it's the Lady Marmalade.
Yeah.
And you listen to that song, and all the singers in it are just fine. You got Pink, you got Maya, you got some of the other singers, and they're fine.
Yeah.
But then at the very end, she comes in and she just, just takes over the whole song.
Makes it hers.
Yes. And it's as if all the other people don't even exist.
Right.
It's like back in the NWA days, whenever Eazy-E came in at the end of the song. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, Ice Cube was awesome, and Ren was great. Yeah. But as soon as Eazy-E dropped in there, you're like, okay, the whole song's different now. Yeah. You're like, now it's awesome.
It's his song at that point.
And they always put him at the end. He was always like almost always the last rapper to come in.
Right.
And it worked, because it's just like, it just took it over. It's like, dang, And that's why when he went solo, or not solo, but he put out solo albums, and then it was like, okay, this is just awesome.
The Easy stuff was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, his stuff was great.
I always thought Dre sucked as a rapper until The Chronic came out, and I thought, okay, he's decent now.
Yeah, but see, The Chronic, other people, his production for that overcarried his vocals, and without Snoop Dogg on that album.
Oh sure.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because Snoop was on almost every track on that album.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
But you listen to Dre's rapping on The Chronic and after, and you compare it to his rapping with NWA.
Oh, no.
It's horrible on NWA. He's just like real like, and there was one point where I think it was on, I can't say the name of that album because I get in trouble, but like their fourth album after 100 Miles and Running.
Okay.
But he went through this thing where he tried to go real raspy, and he was rapping like this, and he sounded like, it's like, what in the world are you doing, dude? You sound horrible.
Trying to find a sound.
Something. So, but then after that, it was The Chronic, and it was like, that just blew up,
Right.
So there you go, man. We went from Iron Maiden to Christina Aguilera to NWA.
Well, yeah, but so the first time, there was a Disney movie that they hired Christina Aguilera for.
Mulan. She did Reflection.
And she did a Reflection song, right?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I think any of us have ever really heard her.
Yeah, I think that was her first
range
single.
in that song. I hate the song.
Oh, do you?
Her range in that song is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And then don't kill me for this, but like I actually saw her live.
Really?
Yeah.
What era? Like early on?
This was 2002.
Okay.
Right?
It was pretty early then.
It was pretty early, and this little girl reminded me of Prince. like going up and watching Prince play, right? Little person, huge sound.
Oh, dude.
Like, how is this sound coming from this little thing?
You know, I feel like that. Lauren Daigle.
Lauren, you know,
same thing. The first time I saw her, because I'd heard her songs on the radio, and the first time I saw her, I was like, dude, it's like this little mousy girl. But she sounds like Adele. I was expecting to see somebody that looks like Adele. Yeah. You know, like this big voice, and you know,
skinny Adele or fat Adele?
Well, well, back then, this is like early Adele, so she was heavier then.
So fat Adele.
Yeah, then she was there. Yeah. Oh man,
it's true, man. She sounded better when she was bigger.
Mm-hmm. She's amazing too.
Yeah, but she is amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The amazing that her actual speaking, like natural speaking voice, is like Cockney or something like that, and she's like, she's got this amazing American singing sound.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the singers are a whole other thing. But yeah, Christina Aguilera is like hyper talented. They don't give her enough credit.
No,
I don't think that she deserves to be lumped up in those pop singers. With like,
well, I think the problem with her is she tries to go the route she doesn't have to go.
I agree.
Like she tries to do the provocative and the sexy, and then she has some albums come out that's all dirty lyrics and stuff. And it's like, you don't have to do that. There's certain singers in there that's the only way they can sell their music.
Right.
I'm like, you have a voice. You could totally be
anything.
Like when Mariah Carey first came out, her first couple albums, she dressed very conservative. She was very modest, you know, but she had a voice. And then somewhere like around the third or fourth album, she decides, you know what, I'm going to start wearing a bikini in my albums, and I'm going to start doing it. It's like, you don't have to do that.
No.
Right? It's like, what are you doing?
No.
You know, you can sell it without that. So why are you doing that?
I think the thing is that they're all scared to be that chick from the Titanic. What was her name?
Kate Winslet?
No.
Celine Dion. Yeah.
Because she was hyper conservative in the way that she looked.
Right.
And I think because she was such a prominent figure in that era, and she had that kind of a voice. Like, let's be real, Celine Dion had a great voice.
Oh, beautiful voice.
I would never watch her live. I would never. You couldn't pay me to go watch her live. I would fall asleep.
Yeah.
Right.
You can go to Vegas and see her live now. I think.
I don't want to. I have no interest in that.
Right.
I'd rather see the Blue Man Group.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
oh yeah.
And Cirque du Soleil.
There you go. That'd probably be more entertaining.
It would be more entertaining. I'd probably not fall asleep because Celine Dion, like, even though she's got the greatest voice, like one of the greatest voices in history, like I would fall asleep.
Right.
She's just horrible.
Yeah.
And I feel like Christina Aguilera has that kind of range.
Totally.
Totally. Mariah Carey, like she's in that
right.
level.
She's got a natural talent that is just undeniable.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if she was to come out in the era of music now with like Billie Eilish and like some of these girls that are like around today singing those songs, those girls wouldn't stand a chance to who she is.
No. Well, I think music in general has just shifted to where the quality of it just isn't as good. And I don't care what the genre is. You listen to anything new.
AI is actually starting to become involved in all that stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I do.
That's a big part of that, huh?
I think so. Yeah, there's so much auto-tuning. But even like when I was in a band and we went and recorded, our first album was like you had to cut in and do everything on the tape, like on ADAT.
Right.
The second album we did was still on, or it wasn't on ADAT, it was on digitized. And it was a huge difference between playing something all the way through and making sure you got it done right the first time.
Right.
Versus like, we're going to cut in and spice this up. And because the truth of the matter is that our bass player did not hold up well when it came to doing this stuff. It just sounded super fuddled and muddy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Angus Cook is the one that actually did our production, and he does stuff for like...
yeah, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Angus Cook is a big deal.
Okay.
Right? So we're talking like Bonnie Raitt.
Oh, wow.
Like
Okay.
He knows Lagwagon, Snot. Like he did a bunch of those. He recorded all that stuff.
Okay.
And so... like he's a big deal. And so when we came in and started playing that stuff live, he's like, well, we're gonna have to splice you out completely. So when we did our recording
to the bass player, he said that?
To our bass player.
Oh, I'm sure he took that well.
And so we had to pay for an extra day just for him to get dubbed in.
Oh, wow.
So like all of us I got all my vocals done in one shot except for one song I had to do twice.
Oh, wow.
And I did all on the first time exactly how I wanted it. He was like, dude, you're perfect.
Nice.
Billy, with the drumming that he had, he only had to go back in, I think, like 3 or 4 times. Brian had to do 2 guitar loops, so play everything twice.
Right.
And he got his stuff done like half a day. Damien had to go through on a full day all by himself and dub him in. But like, if that wasn't there, you think about like, there's a documentary out there called Sound City, right? And Sound City is it's produced by Dave Grohl.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Oh, side note, Josh Freese from the Vandals is like the Foo Fighters' new drummer.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you know that.
I think I did hear that.
Yeah.
So it's funny because Dave Grohl's really involved in the punk scene.
He is
like heavily. Like they all know him.
Yeah.
Like it's just like...
Well, it's because of Pat Smear. Pat Smear was the guitar player for the Germs.
Okay.
And so that LA punk rock origin is always going to be there because he was one of the original Foo Fighters.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so the Sound City, there's a documentary that he put out there about this soundboard, about how it recorded all these great people, Tom Petty and like Rage Against the Machines and Nirvana's first album. It was all on the soundboard, but you had to do everything straight through. There was it wasn't ADAT, it wasn't plugged in, it wasn't digitized, and all and you don't realize how many good albums that were recorded on this thing, where musicians actually had to be musicians.
Right.
And
it probably took forever
to record because like if there was one thing that was wrong. And so one of the songs that was recorded on that, a lot of people don't know this, is Some People Call Me a Space Cowboy.
Steve Miller Band.
Right? The Pompatus of Love. Right? Mm-hmm. I firmly believe this, that he was supposed to say the property of love. But because they recorded everything in one shot, the music was so good that he just
left the wrong lyrics in. That's awesome.
Because after being in a recording studio as much as I've been in one, like when I was younger, I was like, well, the Pompatus is, well, I guess that's staying. Why? Because the drummer can't hit this in any other time, and this is the best recording we've got.
Right.
I guess this is going to have to stick around now.
Wow.
And I think that's literally what happened.
But he'll probably never admit that.
No.
Right.
No.
Wow.
And I wonder whose fault it was. If it was his fault or if it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes more sense. The property of love, right?
Right.
It makes more sense, but there's no word for Pompatus.
Right.
Well, there is now.
Is that even a word?
It is now.
Pompatus?
Pompatus.
I've never heard that word before.
It's specifically Steve Miller.
Okay.
So the Joker, right? So
yeah.
I don't know, man. I see it that way. So.
All right. Well, before we delve into politics, I want to go back a little bit into the punk rock stuff real quick, just because I don't get to talk about this with people very often that are the same as me.
You like my sweater, brother?
I do. That's nice. You know, 7 Seconds is another. I've heard a couple songs. I haven't heard a lot of their catalog. So
top 5 for me.
All right. So if I'm going to start with an album, which one do I start with? So I can check it out later.
I mean, they're all good. Rock Together is probably really good.
Okay.
It's dude, they're like the first. They're out of the early '80s. They still play today. Kevin Seconds lives in Sacramento. But they're out of the early '80s, and they're like the first, I would say, posy punk band in history. Okay. Yeah, Rock Together. That album cover right there. Okay. Yeah, that's what you wanted. It's their best album by far.
I'll check it out. But I have there's a couple of my favorite '90s skate punk bands. I just kind of want to get your take on them. NoFX is one of them. I know we touched lightly on that. I know they're some of the big boys, right?
Yeah, that's a big hitter.
And then Guttermouth is another one. So
Mark.
Guttermouth,
I haven't spoken to Mark in years.
Okay,
yeah.
So Guttermouth is one of those ones. Most people I talk to that know '90s punk and they like it. I don't find many people that's one of their top 5.
I love Guttermouth.
I don't know what it is, dude. It's not even their lyrics, because obviously their lyrics are either really funny or really like vulgar, which is funny sometimes. But it's his voice, and it's the way that just it's so fast, and I just put it on, and it's just the best thing I've ever, and still to this day. Right. I listen to new stuff they just put out, and they haven't changed. Yeah. They had one album where they tried to go pop, and that failed miserably.
I think they did that intentionally.
They did it. They did it intentionally.
That's what I'm saying.
They did. They did. That's what I'm saying. It was, Gusto was the name of the album.
If you listen to the lyrics itself, it's making fun of what they're doing.
Right.
So it's.
Right.
I thought it was genius.
And I don't know if it was the record label pushing that or what, but they were almost like, And after they did that, like, we're not doing that ever again, and they went right back. In fact, the album after that was even more speed punk than the previous few. But
so Guttermouth to me, oh my gosh, dude, that era of punk rock, Guttermouth is probably top 3.
Okay.
For me.
Nice.
In my opinion, Mark's the best punk rock singer in history.
He's awesome, dude. I love it because he does that kind of
he's all over the place.
That nerdy voice, and then he does that raspy one too. Right. Oh, dude, so good.
So the reason why I love Mark so much, Number one, they're really all very nice guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
right.
I've had a chance to hang out with them,
which is funny because you read stuff and people talk about Mark like he's the biggest jerk in history.
He's not.
Like he's getting kicked out of tours for saying things. And he's getting in fights with everybody. He's getting like it's like just him. I've never met him.
He's a really nice guy. Actually.
Okay.
He's actually a really nice guy. He's just hard to. He's quirky.
Mm-hmm.
And some people take his quirkiness as dicky, right, because of the persona he has on stage,
right,
and so they don't understand that like it's hard for him to come in and out of that,
right.
But when you're just like, I've talked to him quite a few times, like back in the day, and he's just so into the moment,
mm-hmm.
you know. He's actually a really really nice guy.
Okay.
Now, as far as singing is concerned, like so, there's a guy named Darby Crash who used to sing for the Guitarist,
oh yeah,
right. Darby Crash is the one that brought the Tasmanian Devil into like into punk, right?
Right.
Well, Mark does the same thing, but he also brought like a rockabilly sound, and like that, and like he's all over the place,
right?
Like,
right.
He's by far like he could do like voiceovers for cartoons,
right?
Like he is so good.
Yeah.
Best punk singer in history.
Yeah. Wow.
Hands down.
That's cool for you to say that.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's epic.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite album by them?
So their first album, the re-release of like all their stuff with like
the full length
Mr. Barbecue, and
all the, which I love, Mr. Barbecue.
Oh, God, yeah.
That
yeah.
when he
1, 2, 3 Slam, like all those.
That one's good. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That album's iconic.
Okay.
Their second album to me is their best album.
The Friendly People.
Friendly People.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's a little more on point about who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Now. This album after that, I can't remember what it was, but with the Godzilla,
Terry Yakamoto,
wasn't really into it.
Well, they don't even like that album. That was the first one I ever heard, though, so it kind of has a special place with me.
Resonates for you.
Yeah, because I was delivering pizzas in San Diego. This is my Guttermouth story.
Okay.
And there was a place called Music Trader. It was very similar to Record Outlet. Do you remember Record Outlet?
I remember that. Yeah.
So it was very similar to that. And they had a bunch of real cool used punk CDs and stuff, and I used to go in there all the time. And I was kind of brand new in the punk scene. I didn't know a whole lot of bands. I knew Epitaph, and I knew Fat. So then there's this compilation called Go Ahead Punk, Make My Day. And it was a Nitro Records
I remember that.
comp. And it was the first time I ever heard AFI.
Right.
And it was the first time I ever heard Jughead's Revenge. Yeah, back when they were more skate punk. And then it was the first time I had ever heard Guttermouth. And they had, it was actually songs from, I believe it was songs from Friendly People. I think it was Derek. Mm-hmm. Was on there, and End on 9, I think, were the two, which are both from Friendly People. But I found their used was the Terry Yakamoto CD, and I was like, okay, I'm digging these two songs on this comp. I'm going to get this album, and I really liked it. But then I come to find out later how different it sounds than their other stuff from production, all that, and the band itself hates that album.
Right.
Not because of the songs, but because of the way it was produced. They don't like the way whoever worked on it, whoever produced it for them. They didn't like the sound that came out.
Right.
But some of the songs are great. But for me, Musical Monkey is hands down their best album.
It's the most intelligent.
Dude, so good.
The song they have on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
My mom came into my room and said,
vulgar,
get the F up out of bed.
It's horrible,
but that's
right?
Genius, dude.
Yeah.
Because it's making fun of every single one of those kids.
Right.
And then like it's genius, dude.
Right.
By far the most intelligent, intelligent album.
Which is funny because people would listen to it and they would say the opposite. They would say like, this is juvenile. This is just them trying to be as vulgar as possible.
No way.
They're saying horrible things about somebody's mom, and they're like doing like all this stuff, you know.
I think they're trying to understand that they've been raised. This was my take on it. That our generation was raised with this idea. There was a group of us that were just such bratty, entitled kids, like suburban kids that were listening to freaking punk rock.
Right.
And so there's a whole genre of kids that were doing that. Now, I listened to that song and I said, "Oh, I know that kid. That's such and such,
right?
And such and such,
right?
And such and such,
right?
Who are drug addicts getting high, playing guitar inside their room to freaking Pennywise riffs,
right?
Trying to figure out how to play it. Don't have a job and they're 24.
So you're able to see what he means by it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Or someone else might think he's actually talking about his own mom. In
no,
that way.
He's not. He's actually. It's not about the mom. It's about the mom has no respect for what she's trying to do.
Right.
And she's not getting any respect from this punk kid who thinks that this is what punk rock is about.
Right.
The rest of the songs on that, because everyone's trying to gratify them. Are they hardcore? Are we hardcore, homocore, albacore? That's a joke.
I can't take it anymore.
Can't take it anymore, right? My core, this core, your core, that core, that core.
Right.
I can't take it.
Yeah.
I want to be unusual.
That's my favorite song on the album.
So
Baker's Dozen.
What they're saying there is ingenious, dude.
Right.
It's like you guys are get over yourself.
Right.
That's basically what he's getting at, and what they're getting at. You guys need to get over yourself.
Right.
And I think that where they were in their career was that like everyone had this anticipation of them trying to prove the next level of like more punk than me. And
Right.
like, even NoFX, talking about NoFX, they had that one part on the back of Punk and Tribalism, right, where it was like, he's more punk than me.
Oh yeah,
that whole thing.
El Jefe, yeah.
Yeah, where he did all those different voices.
Right.
I don't know about this, Yogi. He's more punk than me. Like that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Right. So who's more punk? But that was a thing that was happening in the scene.
Right. Right.
And I think that they were calculatingly making fun of those people.
Right. Well, there's even that part in the NoFX's live album that I heard they suck live, where somebody keeps spitting up on the stage, and Mike's like, he's like, stop spitting on me, I hate it. And then at the end of all that, he goes, I'm serious, and he's like, I'm not that punk, okay, forget it. You know, just like, look, we're not like.
I was actually at the. I'm going to claim this. I was actually at the first show that I think that Mark started that with Guttermouth, where people were spitting on him.
Oh, really?
I think it happened in San Luis.
Oh, wow.
San Luis Obispo. I believe it was at the Trinity Hall in San Luis, where Edna is, and it was really cool. So like, Swinging Utters opened up, and again another. Mark it was like a progressional type thing out of nowhere, where he had spit down on the floor, right?
Mark from Guttermouth?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then someone had said, like, don't freaking spit on me, like in the crowd, and I heard it audibly in the middle of the pit. And he was like, don't spit on you. He's all, if I spit on you, you can spit right back. And the dude literally spit on him.
And is Mark on stage?
Mark is on stage.
Okay.
They're playing right now.
Okay.
And then Mark goes, whoever can get a freaking loogie in my mouth.
Oh my gosh.
While I'm singing, gets $5.
Wow.
And it's the 90s, bro.
$5, really?
$5.
Wow.
Dude, people are going to do it for nothing.
Right. Just to say they did.
Just to say they did. So by the end of the song, he's just drenched in people. Like, it's like hanging off of him, just like gross.
That is nasty.
And I'm like going like, wow, I don't want to dance anymore. I just want to see what's going on here. Like, it's just. I'm just covered in it, and it just turned into a thing. I swear I was at the first show that happened at.
Wow!
Because it was so organic, dude. Like, I was like, that's awesome. I saw that.
I only saw them play once, and it was at Ventura Theater.
Okay.
And I think it was around Musical Monkey. Okay. I think it might have been Gorgeous, maybe, right after Gorgeous came out. And I was really disappointed because he drinks a lot, obviously. Which is fine, if that's your thing.
He's sober now.
But is he?
I think so.
But I'm like, I paid money to come hear one of my favorite bands play, and you're so drunk that you can't even sing good. Like, it's just, I mean, and he's got this big bottle of like Jack Daniels or something on the drum kit or whatever, that in between every song. So he starts off decent. And then as the songs are progressing, he's just, I mean, he's falling over. He can't, I mean, he's like, oh, he's got the mic way over here. You can't even hear the vocals anymore. And even the band's kind of looking at him like, dude, what are you, like, man, you know? So it was really disappointing. And that was the only time I've ever got to see him. So I was really bummed out because they're one of my favorite punk bands of all time. I was so excited. I was just coming off of Musical Monkey. I was like, okay, you're going to play some songs from Musical Monkey, and I'm so excited.
That sucks. You just missed out on an era where they were here like at least once a month.
Oh, wow.
They're coming through.
Okay.
So like, I have a bunch of flyers. You can go. In fact, you can even go through it if you go back on the whole on Instagram and on Numbskull Productions.
Oh yeah.
He puts out all these flyers of like the shows that were happening in the Central Coast that helped him get that kicked off. And it's every weekend. Missing 23rd, Screw 32, Guttermouth, all those bands from that era just sliding through this area all the time.
Southern California, just getting all of it. Yeah.
And playing either in Santa Barbara or in San Luis. And so I saw them, and that's how I got to hang out with them, because back in those days, it's not like they got done with the show and they're like loading their stuff up.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. So
there's no roadies back then.
There's no filter. Right. You throw your band sticker on the back of on the back of their van to open, then the next show they go closure.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, dude, I remember before I got to know. So I actually know Good Riddance pretty well.
Okay.
Saw them play in Goleta.
Okay. At the living room?
At the living room. No,
I love that venue.
Was it Anaconda or the same spot?
Okay.
Saw them play, and I went to work, and at the time I was working at this gas station, Graveyards, right? And the band was barely starting to make it. It was come together.
What album are we on with them at this point?
They'd just come out on a compilation they hadn't put out for God and Country yet.
Oh, is that early?
That early.
Oh my gosh!
So like they had there's another version of Mother Superior that's out there. It's on a compilation where it's super slow,
Really?
Yeah, it's
that sucks.
It
I love
suck.
how fast that song is. That song's great.
How about it?
Yeah.
To die for man.
I've never seen them live, but I've seen video of them live,
aggro,
and they always play that song last.
So aggro.
Yeah.
What's a connection?
Yeah,
right?
Such a great song. That's their best album, I think.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
By far.
Comprehensive Guide was good too. Had some really good songs on it.
A lot of good music.
Yeah.
The Forgotten Country was like...
Okay, so let me ask you this. I know you're going somewhere with that, but I have a question. I've asked people this that are good Riddance fans, and I've gotten a lot of flack for this, even asking this question.
Okay.
I'm not disrespecting anybody. I love the band. I think they're great. Why does Russ's voice continually get higher and higher and higher as the albums go on? Like, you listen to Forgotten Country, and he's very low, like... Yes. Yeah. And then Comprehensive, a little higher... You know, of course, and that's when he's doing like "Come Dancing." He's doing like, you know, like some of these cover songs, and he's just very. And then by the time you get to like "Ballads from the Revolution" or even "Operation Phoenix" or whatever that fourth one was, it's high. It almost sounds like a different singer almost.
So
I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's so weird to me.
So some of it, he does. You're right. Some of it is because of where they're choosing to record.
Okay.
And their early stuff was more like garage recording. It wasn't really as produced as much. If you notice, the more production it gets, the higher he gets.
Right.
So now their newest album that just came out a few years ago, I can't stand it.
I haven't heard it.
Don't bother.
I haven't heard it. The last one I heard was the live one they did.
Right. So they just came out with another one like a few years ago.
Really?
I think it was like 4 years ago.
Is it on Fat?
I believe so.
Okay.
It's on iTunes. You can listen to it.
What's it called? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I hated it that much.
Yeah. You just erased it from your memory.
Yeah. This is not what I want to remember them as. Yeah. It's just horrible.
Right.
They don't even sound like the same band. They sound like a completely different band because of what you're saying. His voice is so high.
Right.
I think everything from like Ballads of Revolution and prior is really good.
Yeah.
Right?
I would agree, yeah.
Operation Phoenix had half of that was really good.
A couple good songs, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then after that, it just, I don't know where it went.
Right.
So there's a production value, and I know some of it as a singer is singing like that so much. And he's a chest singer. He's not like he's not a throater like even from his diaphragm. He sings from his chest.
Right.
And when you do that for long periods of time, the bottom range of your vocal cords will start to blow out. And so the only way you can still get the projection is if your voice goes higher with it.
Well, so see, that makes sense.
If you listen to a lot of singers, in general, for a great example is a chick from Hillsong. Okay, I love her voice.
Yeah, Darlene.
Taya, something, the blonde chick that sings in Oceans. Like Taya, she's probably one of the best voices in worship history.
Yeah,
if not the best. Okay. God, there's a whole other genre.
Yeah.
But you listen to like her and what she does. She doesn't get higher in her pitch. She gets higher in the projection, which makes you think that she's higher in her pitch. So she's projecting so much more that it overranges the sound. And so that's kind of what's happening to him, to where like he's losing that range of his low spot. And so in order for him to keep projecting, it becomes in a higher tone. Gotcha. And so if you notice that if he was to have the same voice that he has now on the older stuff, it doesn't sound right. So they've had to change their intonation in some of their songs.
Well, see, that's I almost can't fault somebody for that, though, because if it's just your natural voices happening, what are you going to do? Just stop releasing albums?
Get a new singer, screw him.
Yeah.
Sorry, Russ, if you hear this.
Yeah. So I'm sure he'll hear this. Yeah. I wish. That'd be awesome if I had that kind of thing. Yeah. Like, hey, we talk about you, and I talk about how crappy your new album is. So if you want to hear that,
and by the way, your politics are crap.
But I mean, I respect that in a sense, because it's like if it's out of your control, it's.
Yeah. Then what do you do about it?
Right.
We look at Metallica. Metallica did the same exact thing, right? So they're like after.
Don't get me started on Saint Anger. That was. I've talked about that multiple times on this podcast. How awful that vocals were on that album, and I'm not the kind of guy who says everything Metallica did after like whatever sucks.
Yeah.
Even their newest album that just came out is decent, but I don't know what in the world was happening with his vocals on Saint Anger.
I don't know.
It was brutal, horrible. So bad.
Yeah.
But all the albums around that are fine. Death Magnetic is fine. You know.
But the sound pitch and intuition is different as well.
Yeah, horrible.
Like even like Lars changing up his snare to a piccolo, so it has more of that high poppy ting to it.
Yeah.
Was a horrible idea.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that was going on there that was just really bad in my opinion. I don't, we probably shouldn't go on tangent of Metallica because that'll take.
Yeah, that'll take forever. We do need to start moving into the political section, even though I'm having so much fun talking to you about punk rock and stuff. Because like
fun. I don't get to talk music.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not very often.
Well, I'm gonna say one last thing though before we go.
Yeah.
What bugs me about music today is this. When we were younger, someone would come over to the house and they'd be like, "Dude, check this out," and they put it in the stereo, and we'd all sit in a room and we'd listen to it and like talk about how it made us, how it resonated. Right.
Right.
That's missing today.
It is
in today's culture.
Right. Why do you think that is?
Oh my gosh, dude.
Like it doesn't have like an impact as much in the lives of people.
I don't think they understand the artistry of it is being lost completely, because like when we get like whether it be an album or a tape or a CD, the first thing we did when we put it in, we pulled the freaking cover out.
Yes. I still do that.
We pull the cover out and we look at it, because the whole thing in itself is what they're trying to translate across.
Right.
And whether that was an Earth, Wind & Fire album, a Minor Threat album, whatever it was, this is what they're trying to portray of who they are within this moment to capture this historical
It's
spot.
the whole package, is what they're representing.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
And that's missing today. When all you have to do is get on your phone and click on something.
Digital,
and all you see is a small little icon that has no little impact whatsoever on your phone, and the music has to translate about how it feels to you. But if you're already in a certain algorithm in your mind of what kind of music you want to listen to, that'll dictate whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And you'll just find a playlist that's the kind of music you want to listen to, and you're not even hearing a whole album.
No.
Who does that anymore? Who pops on an album that they've never heard and listens to the first song all the way to the last song, and then
as a piece,
as a whole? Piece. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That never happens anymore.
I do it.
You're listening to songs here and there. I mean, I do it all the time.
Right.
But I'm one of those weird guys that still buys CDs, and I still, I mean, I'll use my phone at work and stuff to listen to them, but I'll buy the CDs, put them onto my iTunes, and then that's all on my phone. Right. And I got a terabyte phone. So just so I could hold my entire music collection, because it's huge.
Oh, wow.
But I want to be able to have access to whatever song I want to listen to when I want to listen to it.
Exactly.
Because if I'll just put some albums on there, and I know when I'm at work, the one song I'm going to hear is not going to be part of that. So I'm just like, boom, just put them all on there, and then pay a little extra, get a terabyte of memory on this phone, and then it's like, they're like, "Are you sure you want?" I said, "Yeah, I have a big music collection. I want it all on there."
So do I. But even so, like at work and stuff. Like I make playlists so that way it's not like the same thing. But if it was me by myself in the solo, I'd be listening to the album straight,
right,
from beginning to end.
Totally,
yeah.
Because it changes things. Like there's certain albums that once you get to a certain song, it only hits you a certain way if you've heard the 3 songs before it. I don't know how else to explain that.
It sets it up.
Right.
It sets it up.
And it's on purpose.
Right.
They put those songs in that order for a reason. Right. And if you look back in like the 80s and the 90s, you always, somewhere around the 3rd or 4th song or 5th song is where you got the ballad.
Kick over.
Right. And then it'll get back into the thing. So it'll start off really fast. Like take Metallica.
Okay.
Let's take Ride the Lightning.
Right.
It starts off just, it's all this hair. And then you get to track 4, Fade to Black.
Right.
Real mellow, do. It's just like,
so
it's just like
taking in punk rock, Bad Brains, right?
Right.
With all their songs, the first 3 songs with like PMA and like all that kind of stuff on their first album. Then it turns into some kind of small reggae song on the 4th song.
Right.
And so that kind of mellows it back down.
Right.
And after that, it just goes.
And then they go right back into it. Exactly. It's almost like the intermission for the album.
Right.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Go get your stack.
Stack up. Oh yeah.
You go get your snack and come back and listen.
Right. Exactly.
Right. But that's what's missing. That's what's missing today.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, man. You ready to talk politics?
I guess so.
All right. Do you fall? I mean, do you consider yourself kind of a political
politician?
guy? Or, not a politician, but obviously.
I'd run for mayor.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
You did, or
I'm planning on it.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll hear your views today. I'll decide if I want to vote for you or not.
Actually, county district supervisor, so it's something I've been thinking about.
Okay.
I'm dead serious.
Sure. Go for it, man.
North County specifically.
Yeah, I'll get excited when I see your name on signs around town and stuff.
I know that fool.
Yeah.
He's going to screw everything up. Let's vote for him.
Right.
Can't get much worse.
Yeah.
Let's see how he blows it up.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two kinds of people that I've noticed as I talk to people on this podcast. Like people that are political in the sense of like I'm following the candidates, I'm following the election, I'm following the presidency, I'm following the governors. There's that kind of political, and then there's people who are just like, no, there's certain things going on in the world that I'm very passionate about that I think they need to change. So I kind of approach it from one of those two aspects. So we can talk about actual politics, or you can just kind of tell me some of the things that you're like, this is a big problem in our world that needs to change, or else we're going to go downhill big time, or we're already going downhill, or however you want to word it.
So then I have a question. Is is politics just basically the branches of government and what you're talking about, or is it a socioeconomic thing?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It can be both, depending on who you're talking to, right? For most people, they'd rather, because people will tell me, well, Ryan, I'm not a political person. And then I'll ask this question. What do you think is the most important issue facing our world today? And then they go blah, 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 and then they talk for days because everybody's passionate about something in that realm. But a lot of people are like, I don't care who the president is. I don't care who the governor is. I don't even vote. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I'm not interested in politics, right? As a organization, you know? So I'd ask you, so where do you, like, like if you got elected, right? And you had the power to change something, what would you,
on what level?
On what level?
Yeah.
Any level, you pick. Whatever you think would make the biggest impact for the good in our country.
For the country,
or even our world. Let's say you're the president of the world.
Globally, or like a national
global
level, not like locally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
That's a huge difference.
It is. Yeah.
You know, it's it's not a loaded question, but it's a hard one to answer because it's like so at my core, I'm a libertarian. Okay. I think that the more laws we pass, the worse it gets. Plain and simple. I believe in liberties. I believe in freedoms. I believe that people have the right to destroy themselves if that's what they want to do. But I also believe that everyone has a right to have a say without infringing upon anyone else's right to have a say. So at my core, I'm a libertarian. Okay. So that being said, I have a really wide idea about what people can and can't do. So now, for example, I'm going to get to a really hot button topic situation right here.
Sure. Let's do it.
Abortion.
Oh, good one.
I freaking hate it. I hate it with everything that I am, everything that I can be, everything that I stand for morally, socially, economically. I hate every aspect of it. Can't stand it. There's even more stuff involved. My mom, about abortion, my mom being adopted. And because she comes off a reservation, I told you I was Native American earlier. So
right.
She came off a reservation, and back in those days when someone had already had a child, they would force abortions on the natives to get the population down because the government didn't want to pay for it.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my mom's an escapee from an abortion thing. I hate abortion flat out. I don't care what anyone has to say. If someone has one, I don't judge them.
Not even inwardly? Or you mean you're just not vocal to them about what you think?
I don't judge them. I feel bad that they made the decision.
Right.
Okay. And do I think that the idea, as a libertarian, this is weird dichotomy, because like, do I think that people should have the right to do whatever they want to do within that standpoint? Technically, yeah.
Right. So when you say like they have a right to do, like you said, if someone wants to destroy themselves, you believe they have the right to, and I would have to agree with you. I hope they don't, but I agree that they have the right to. I would try to get them to
not make those decisions.
Right. But then when we bring in something like abortion, the debate is more, and I know this is the left view, is that it's her body, her choice kind of thing. But the conservative view, the pro-life side says, yes, but that's not your body. That's a body living inside your body.
So it's a weird spot.
That's the problem that we have as pro-life people.
I agree.
Right? To say, yeah, if you want to commit suicide, again, I will try everything in my power to stop you from doing so. Right. But if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do.
So, but I look at it like this. So someone comes up to me and they say like, yeah, my body, my choice. Well, then go smoke meth.
Right. Right. Exactly. But you wouldn't let your kid smoke meth and say, my body, my choice.
Right.
Because that's someone else now that you're inflicting that on.
Exactly.
So that's the issue.
So it's a weird issue, right?
Right.
So like, you ask anybody who's a pro-choice person that question, like, well, my body, my choice. Well, what about mothers who are smoking meth? Oh no, that's horrible. Why?
Right. Well, they'll say it's because it's just the same thing as like if there's a car accident and the mother's pregnant and her and the baby died, they say 2 lives died, and it was a double homicide. Or let's say there's a murder, like somebody kills the mom, and they say it's a double homicide. And their response, because I've asked them about this,
double manslaughter or whatever.
Yeah, I'll say, well, what's the problem here? And they'll say, well, the difference is that woman wanted that baby. She was planning on birthing that baby, so therefore that's murder. But if a woman's choice is to end the life of her own child, that's not murder. I'm just saying that's their argument.
I know, I get it.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it at all. That's their argument.
But like I said, as a libertarian, that's something that like I say, okay, fine. So and this is really controversial, right?
Right.
I believe that we should be able to uphold and teach within our houses and be responsible for whatever happens within our house to the guidance of our children as they're upcoming. So, does that make sense? So,
you mean like you're talking about
our responsibility to make sure that our children are being raised with the morality and the values that we need to instill within them so they can make the proper choices on their own. Because I believe that making the choices up to them, in the same exact way that Adam and Eve were at the garden, knowing that death was there at that tree, that's a libertarian point of view in my mind.
Right. It is.
It is. Like
because God could have forced them. God could have not even put that tree in the garden.
Right.
But he gave them the option.
Give them the option. So if you want to destroy yourself, feel free to destroy yourself. Don't force me to agree with it.
But unfortunately, when he destroyed himself, it destroyed the rest of us too. That was the bad part about it.
Adam screwed up, man. I know everyone wants to blame Eve or whatever, but it was Adam's fault. Their eyes were both open until he bit the apple.
Oh, right.
Right. And he was in charge. And if you saw a talking snake, he named everything. You should have killed it.
You think so?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. I digress.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my point of view, like, politically.
Okay.
Right? The problem with that point of view is that that's how I live myself personally. The problem is that personal ideology that I have does not work on a corporate level. And I understand that. And so it's frustrating for me. But
do you think it should work on a corporate level, like in a perfect world?
I think it's too far gone for that. I think it's too.
But if you could reset everything, would you set it up so it did work?
Yeah, I think that's what the founding fathers wanted.
Okay.
I think that's literally what the founding fathers wanted of this country.
Right.
I believe that they wanted everyone to have indelible rights of freedom and liberties, but there's a difference between freedom and liberty. Just because you're free to do something doesn't mean you should have liberty to do it based upon your community. There's a huge problem. I wouldn't say that politics and law decision and lawmaking is the issue. I would say that the biggest issue is, do we have a difference of mindset between a traditional valued mindset and a progressive mindset? Is it westernized Greek thought process, or is it a traditional mindset? Now, I believe we should be thinking progressively, like in a Greek mind thought process, acting in a traditional mindset. And so, if that makes sense, because for example, being Native again, everything we do, and now obviously I'm saved, so I'm speaking from a Native standpoint here. But everything that most Natives do has a dictation upon your ancestors. And there's a shame and an honor culture that needs to be always on the prevalent aspect of your life. For example, most people don't talk about this, but in Native circles, if you're gay, you're an abomination. Because you're basically saying to your people, well, I know we're already dying. I know there's very few of us, but I'm not willing to breed.
That's an interesting take.
No one talks about this.
Is this like on reservations, you say, that this is the view? Okay.
Yeah, it's the majority view.
Okay. Not
like here in like Chunasher, California, but you go back to like North Dakota, Montana, and Canada, and to where my people are, and the Standing Eagle Rock and the Blackfoot area up there. This is a highly talked about thing. If you're saying you're gay, then you get ostracized.
Oh, wow. They'll kick you out of the reservation?
They just won't give you your numbers. You won't get any benefits. You won't get
so you'll
nothing.
be forced to leave.
Yeah.
Really, because you can't survive otherwise.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, but they don't really talk about it. Okay, so, and a lot of Native circles, and it's not just Native Americans. You go out to Hawaii and talk to some of the Tongans and the Samoans and like some of those guys, and they all feel the same way. Just no one's talking about it. Because basically what you're saying is you're giving a big F you to your ancestors and your bloodline. You're not willing to sing the songs. You're not willing to like do the marks. You're not willing to do these kinds of things to carry on the tradition and the values of who you once were, where you came from. You're basically telling everyone that I'm more important.
Do they feel the same way about somebody who, like, say, is just impotent, or if a woman is barren, like they're trying to have children and they can't? Do they see that as like a curse, like in the Old Testament? Like
you're cursed,
right? So, like, if they're hoping to preserve the bloodline, if they see a couple that just physically cannot have children, I mean, they're a heterosexual couple, but they just can't have children, or is it more like because that's not their choice per se?
I think that generally depends on the tribal aspect.
Okay.
Because we're not all the same. We don't all get along either. Like that's a myth. I mean, like,
I don't buy that myth at all.
No, we don't all get along.
Yeah.
Like my family's all mountain Indians. We don't get along with desert Indians.
Right.
That's just the way it goes.
Right.
Desert Indians are polytheistic. Mountain Indians are monotheistic.
Interesting.
And so we usually believe in like a singular. Most mountain Indians and like northern plain Indians, they start to believe more into like an Algonquin idea, or even like a singular like creator, right? Not a polytheistic. And those Indian wars that everyone has always talked about is because of that. And so politically, there's a problem there.
Okay.
But both are still trying to like uphold the traditional values of everything, right?
Well, yeah.
So the issue that I think is facing today is that like because of these things that we have in our hands that teach us how, it's a weird thing, man. These phones allow this generation to be in a room of 3,000 people and then alone in a second. And so because of that specific autonomy, and sovereignty is what I'm going to call it, they feel like they have their own sovereignty. Because of that idea of the individual sovereignty, it takes a traditional mind thought process and throws it right out the window. And so, because whatever is good for me is good for everybody, and I don't care what everyone else thinks. And it's not about, there's this idea that like you and I don't get, and every generation before us doesn't get. And I think it's because there's this need for them to feel accepted. Well, I didn't care if I had acceptance. I was doing what I was going to do anyway. You didn't care if you were accepted by other people. But if they didn't accept you, at least I know where I stand now. I don't have to waste my time hanging out with you.
Right, exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where now there's there's a political ideology we're being forced to. So, and this is a real deal thing that we're dealing with. Where we're being forced to accept people no matter what. Now, acceptance is a huge word in today's culture. And I feel like more than the laws that are being passed, more than the financial aspects that are happening of things, right? And our financials right now as a country are just garbage. As a world escape, it's garbage, right? And we can talk about for hours as to why that is. It doesn't really matter. Inflation is crazy. I don't care whose fault it is. It's everybody's fault. If you're involved, it's your fault. All right? Everyone needs to start taking responsibility for it. I don't care if you're a Trumper or a Biden person or you're still part of the problem because the problem is still the same problem, right? Regardless of what side you're on. Now, I know who I vote for, and I'm not trying to say one thing or the other.
Right.
And I think you know me well enough to think you know who I would vote for too.
Right.
And I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that if you're involved, you need to take responsibility for the problem, whether you created it or not.
Right. Now, what is that problem that you're referring to?
Well, I'm talking about the financial aspects of the world, the social economic aspects of the world. When I say social economics, that's a big branch word, right? The social economics of the world, the actual social construct, like the societal construct and ideology of the world, is tied into all those things now when they shouldn't be.
Okay.
And that's an issue, and it's because of this autonomy and the sovereignty that people feel like they need to have. And I hope that makes sense. Like where I'm coming from, I hope that makes sense because it's such a. There's no way of looking at this saying we can wash this out and start over. It's too far gone. And there's no way of looking at it saying like this is the way it should be because of this, and this, right? So it's such a hard road to go down. But I believe that the more and more we get away from traditional mind thought process and accepting what it means to know where we come from, the worse things are going to get. And right now, get on a side note real quick. Right now, I'm involved in something that's pretty big. I'm involved in so I might be going and sitting in front of Congress here pretty soon.
Oh, wow.
And the reason being is because there's a web designer that's in Denver, Colorado, that was asked to do a website for a gay. A lot of marriages these days are doing websites for their marriages. They create a website and a domain, and everyone can go to there, and they know where they're going to register to, all that kind of stuff. Well, the person that's doing it, the woman that's doing it, is a digital image content creator. Doing websites really not her basic thing, right? And so this gay couple approached her and said they wanted her to do it. She said, it's not really my bag. But they took offense to it.
Right, back to the cake thing again.
Back to the cake thing, right? Took offense to it. But this is different now because it's an artistic aspect. Where like, it's not just cake. Where cake is cake, it's pretty straightforward. Not just what you want on the cake, but now it becomes an artistic aspect.
Okay.
So I was approached by a huge group of people. And they're asking a bunch of different artists from a bunch of different backgrounds, right, to put themselves out there because the First Amendment's now in hold because of this whole thing. And right now it's looking like it's going to go in front of Congress.
Wow.
So I'm in the middle of this kind of.
Okay.
So what's happening is, and this is the way I view it, if this person, because the way that the law is being structured and written out, this person is being forced to be able to not say that they have the right to refuse service because of any reason at all, well then how does that not carry over into every aspect of Swap and Pop? So what if you're a restaurant owner? Forget the gay and lesbian thing.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're a restaurant owner one time and someone comes in with a dog and they're completely unruly and the dog they say is a service dog, but you can tell it's not a service dog.
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't allow non-service dogs in here, sir. Like, well, how do you know? Well, it doesn't have a vest on and it's barking all over the place.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's jumping on other people.
Yeah.
Well, it's what I want. Well, they legally can't say no anymore if this gets passed.
That's horrible.
I would no longer have the right to be able to tell people what I want and not want a tattoo as an artist.
So you have that now.
Well, I right now have the right to do it.
So if someone comes in and they say, I want this, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I don't want a Wiccan tattoo.
Right,
or
right.
They want a pentagram on the side of their face.
Right.
I'm not allowed to lead them into making a wise decision. I have to give them what they ask
See, which is crap, because there's plenty of tattoo shops. But they won't go to another one when you tell them no, if they're gonna be those kind of people.
Right.
Just like the cake thing, right?
Yeah.
they could have went to another cake shop, but they're like, no, we're going to force you to do it.
For you.
Right.
Would love to.
But that's not the point. The point is that they make it political, and they're like, no, we're going to force this guy to do it because we disagree that he doesn't want to.
Right. And here's the difference. I will stand up for anyone's right any single day of the week for them to be able to do that tattoo, whether I agree with it or not.
Of course.
Right?
I do too.
I will stand up in the face and fight for their right to do it if that's what they want to do. But I'm also going to stand up to say that I have the same exact right on the opposite side.
Exactly. But they won't let you have
part
that.
Of me actually comes in.
Right.
Right. That's where the libertarian part of me comes in, right? So it's like, and this is a thing that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. So I've been interviewed, I've been put out, they're going to put out a, what's it called, an op-ed piece. Mm-hmm. It's happened, I've put my name on it.
Oh, wow.
All kinds of stuff. It's going before the Congress right now. Mm-hmm. If it ends up passing through, I'll be going up in front of sitting in Capitol Hill and from the tattoo Christian perspective side.
Nice, dude.
Which is an interesting thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I've also talked to a couple of people about it, and they're like, well, why are you doing this? I said, because this is the biggest issue in our society right now to me.
Right.
More than the finances, because finances can be rectified. People can gain money and lose money. That's a thing. Right. People can become wealthy. There's no such thing as there being any more or any less wealth. It's just transitioning of the money from one person's hand to another. So, I mean, I understand they keep printing money. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if someone's getting poor, someone else is getting rich. That's just the way it works, right?
Right.
I have no problems with capitalism. I have no problems with those kinds of things. And it's not perfect, but it's the best one we got. Okay?
Right. What's a better solution, right, is what I always tell people. Is that capitalism sucks. It's like, okay, and then they'll start saying all these problems with it. I was like, okay, you got some valid points, but you show me a different system that will work better.
Right.
And they got nothing.
And there's no other system that allows for DIY.
Right.
And that's the most punk rock thing you can think of.
Totally.
I understand that punk rockers are like, oh, screw capitalism, they want socialism. No, they really don't.
Well, even punk rock people are changing
Native
now.
American, socialism sucks.
Right.
You want to see socialism fail? Go to any Indian reservation.
Right.
Any of them.
Right.
So
I bet.
I have a weird point of view about those things.
Well, you have a unique point of view because a lot of people don't have that. Right. Like, you don't have that experience.
But the fact that they even say that I'm Native American and say that kind of thing, if someone who doesn't know who I am, they're automatically in their head going to be like, well, he has a right to say that. No, you have a right to say it too.
Right.
And that's what bugs me.
It bugs me too. And that's what I don't understand. Like, you brought up abortion a minute ago.
Right.
And anytime another guy brings up abortion, I automatically go there because I've heard it so many times myself when they say, well, Sabin, you're a male. You have no right to even talk about abortion. See, that's what they'll say to you, but which is crap. Because I'm like, look, a man understands what it is just as much as a woman does.
No, I agree.
You know.
But okay, so if that's the case, if I don't have a right to say, then I don't have a right to pay. Well, that's my kid.
Right.
If you say that that's my kid, and I don't have a right to say whether it lives or dies, if you choose to live for it, well, what if I don't choose to pay for it?
Right.
Well, it's the same logical thread, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, then no, that doesn't work. Why? Because it doesn't work for you.
Right.
Exactly. It's not a traditional mind thought process. It's a selfish, imposed individualism of sovereignty.
Right.
That's what's wrong with today's culture.
Sure.
Is they don't recognize where true sovereignty is. Mm-hmm. That's the political problem for me.
So that would be the biggest issue.
That's the biggest issue.
That if we could fix that, yeah. Well, for everybody, really. From your viewpoint, it would be like if that changed, that would affect everybody in a good way, whether they like it or not.
Right. I understand it, like, there's a bunch of different ways of how people view how that can be taken out, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, nothing in the system is ever going to work 100%, right? It'll work for some people, but nothing is ever going to work.
Well, and that's on purpose, right? I think the world was created imperfect not created imperfect, but it became imperfect. And from a Christian perspective, right, that's also what? So we'll depend on the Lord.
Right.
Because if we were all self-sufficient and everything was great, what do we need God for?
And that's the thing, dude. It's like, so politically, it's like, I believe that there's a holy discontent that's happening in this world. That God is allowing it. So Scripture, there's a bunch of places in Scripture talks about how like God turned them over to their own demise.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, even if we're producing great fruit, the people that like that fruit don't like the taste of our fruit. So no matter how good our fruit is, it still tastes bitter to them.
Right. Right. They don't have the ability to taste it.
They don't have the ability to taste it.
Right.
So what are we supposed to do? So that's another question politically. So we have this viewpoint, like a world viewpoint of how we look at stuff, right? And off everything I just said about how the fruit tastes, right? And we think that, well, we have this fruit and it tastes so good, and they're like, well, we have this fruit and it tastes so horrible, and we love it. We want more of the we want more of the tragic, right? And we're like, but why would you want more of the tragic? Well, because it allows them to be their own sovereign thing. Like, what's the very first rule of all satanic principles, right? Do what's thy will. So as long as that's the main principle leading into our politics, because they kind of go hand in hand for me, right? You can't view one thing without having a viewpoint from the other one. The problem is they don't even understand this viewpoint. They're just like, oh, it's so salty, like McDonald's French fries. I just love them.
It's like Jim Gaffigan.
Even the one in the bottom of the bag that's been there for 3 days. It's so good. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and you just don't know it.
They just don't know.
Well, it's like the moldy fruit analogy that people have used. If people are just, that's all they know is moldy fruit. They want more of the moldy fruit because to them it's good.
Toilet wine is still wine, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember being when I was locked up. I remember being locked up, right? And seeing this guy, and he was drinking like total alcoholic and making wine like Pruno while we were locked up. And I was just like, and I was like, dude, you're hiding that in the toilet? And he goes, toilet wine is still wine.
Wow.
I think, but hepatitis is still hepatitis.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh man,
bro.
Yeah, but if you got a problem, you don't care.
You don't care. Why? Because you're not thinking about it.
Yeah,
right.
I don't care if
because
I get
hepatitis. Because that moldy fruit tastes amazing. Right. And until then that's the problem, like politically for me, right now. I think that's a huge problem. Finances, okay. We want to talk about financial problems and whose fault it is, and the pipelines being shut down and all that kind of stuff. And from a native perspective, talking to like some of my uncles that had dealing firsthand with the pipeline going through their property, literally. Right, I could show you pictures of the pipeline going through my uncle's property. Right, and him telling me, this is really just about how much money we can get out of it. Right, and they're just as upset about the pipeline being shut down, but they can't say anything about it. So he's like, well, I was getting money from the pipeline being open, but now they shouldn't have. Biden shut it down, and like I can't say we were protesting it because we weren't getting our ends of it. Right. Now that we're not getting our ends of it, we can't go back and say like, well, hey, wait a minute here, because we were acting like we didn't want it from the first place. Right. The same exact thing with why have you never heard a lot of Native Americans talk about like the Black Lives Matter thing or like the All Lives Matter? Want to know why? Because we all realize that it's a bunch of white people making rules against themselves for this. So a
lot of the black community knows that too. Right.
Now they do.
Right.
Now they do.
Well, even in the beginning, a lot of them you didn't hear a lot of them because they weren't putting them on TV because that wasn't the narrative they wanted to spread.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's
socially that's an issue too.
Right.
Like the scam of it all. Right. Like because there's a scam of it all. But a lot of having a native perspective on how to look at this stuff, I'm just like, wow, this is we have a different point of view on it. Right. Now I've had a conversation with a couple of other people who have different political backgrounds than me, specifically over in Hawaii. There's a guy, Suluwape Keone, right? Wow. And he is he's like the head Hawaiian traditional tatau marker. Like he does it by hand. Okay. And I've had a chance to sit on a mat with him while he did his work and like talk with him. And
he's like a friend of yours or something? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but he's a big deal. Okay. He's a huge deal in this community. Like he's it. Like when he says something goes, it goes. Oh wow. There was he's the foremost person of authority on what this Hawaiian style of tattooing looks like. Not Samoan, not specifically Hawaiian. Like he's it. He's the godfather. He brought it back from when it was completely destroyed. Wow. And it's a big deal.
So he got respect for that. I'm sure. Yeah.
Mad respect. And Suluwape is like the title of Suluwape is like not just like master. It's almost like a head chief type thing. There's something that goes with it. Like you're the man, right? Right. It's an entitlement, like a title meant. Talking with him, and he's a total liberal. Okay. And he's talking to me about how all these things are, and I'm sitting in a room on a mat with this guy, another dude who's a Japanese tabori master, so he does hand poking tabori, right? A Mohawk guy on this other side of the map, right? Who does traditional marking that way, and then me, I'm the only electric person in the room. But I also do traditional hand marking, right, too. And so we're all sitting and having a conversation. There's like 10 people sitting around us all listening. So it's like the 4 of us on the mat and people all listening around, and they're talking. And I hear, and you get in these native circles and everyone starts bashing on the white man. It's always the white man's fault. And so then Keone, who's the older guy, he's like in his 80s, he looks at me and he goes, Sabin. And I'm like, what's up? And he goes, you got something to say? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. You know? And he goes, well, what do you have to say? And in native circles, like whoever is speaking, they're allowed to say whatever they want, and there's no crosstalk. It's like a thing, right? And I say, well, dude, like I don't blame the white man. Like I don't blame them for what they did. I said,
this is what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, they came trying to give what they thought was a better life. They did only what they thought they were supposed to do. You can't blame them for that. Everyone's upset that they told us to stop singing our songs and to stop doing our work and to stop dancing and to stop doing all these things. Well, we're the ones that decided to stop doing that. We didn't have to. We could have fought it, but instead we gave into it.
Right.
So you can't blame people for doing what they were supposed to do. We're the ones that gave up on that.
Do you find a lot of Native people that agree with that stance that you just took? No,
not
right?
At all. Not at all. And a lot of it is because of the personal responsibility aspect of it. And a lot of natives today that have been raised on reservation have been raised with a socialistic mindset.
Right.
And so there's always a victimized mindset. And I refuse to be a victim.
Right.
So...
Well, because there's always this talk and this conversation always comes up, usually around Columbus Day, right?
Okay.
And they always talk about how
Killer Day.
Yeah, right. How
Indigenous Killer Day.
How the Europeans came over and they raped and killed all the peace-loving Indians or Native Americans and wiped them all out, you know, and then started their colonies and all this kind of stuff. So you being more on the inside of that, I mean, what do you think? Like Columbus Day comes around, do you put a picture of Columbus, start shooting at it? I mean, like, what do you, like where do you come from? I'm guessing you probably don't come from the stance that I just described.
Yeah, bro, I pull out my headdress and
start throwing tomahawks at the picture. Yeah.
Totally. Have you ever been axe throwing? It's super fun.
Bethany wants to do that.
You should check it out. It's super fun. Just be careful, don't hit yourself with the axe.
Right. Yeah.
So no, but my whole view is that is this. So my uncle, okay, Philip, he was one of the elders of the tribal council. And
so it's like higher ups.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's only 10 people on tribal council. Yeah. Every tribe is different in how they do their bylaws and that kind of stuff, right? All bylaws are written through, just like churches. All bylaws are written through, and they've got to be agreed to by the government about what it would look like for that specific tribe, all that kind of stuff, right? Until you become your own nation, and it's different. You get to write your own bylaws for your own national aspects, okay? But every type of reservation, whether it's Chumash or whatever, I use Chumash because that's the area we're in.
Right.
They have bylaws that have to agree to a certain standpoint. That go along with the surrounding bylaws of their area. So, like, that makes sense? It's a lot. So, my uncle was driving in frozen, covered winter Montana. Like, up by the Canada border. Like, it's cold. Like, Canadians look at that area and say, I'll never go there.
These are Canadians that are used to cold.
Yeah. It's where the Rockies and the Canadian Alps meet, is in this part of the bowl. So, like, it's super cold. Like, it's a whole nother level of cold.
And people live there on purpose.
And they live there on purpose, right?
Wow.
And he was driving past, our people in, like, trailers and, like, modular homes that are just busted up and broken, and like dudes sleeping outside in tents in the snow, and he's got this like 10-bedroom house.
Wow.
Driving like a Ford like F-250, rugged King Ranch Max, like whatever that it is, right?
Right.
Just sitting on heated cushions, right? And he's just killing him. It's just killing him inside because they do just enough to keep their people going. But it's not because it's all done in like socialism aspect. Well, it's like people get what they get, but
he's sitting on something fat all the while that they're getting just enough to live.
Right, and it just torn apart.
Right.
So what he did is he sold the rights to the tribal council back to the council. Didn't want anything to do with it anymore. Felt super convicted. Felt like it wasn't the way. They bought him out, and then he decided he would just go do something else, right, and not be a part of it. He no longer has a right to have a say of anything that happens within the tribe, right? When he did that for all of us. So like, he's the elder, he's the elder statesman. We have to follow his whim. Now, whether I wanted that or not, I was never asked. It doesn't matter. Because he's the head of the family, right? So, am I going to sit here and whine and complain about what happened there? No. But what's interesting is that when you look at those kind of concepts about like the haves and the have-nots, and you look at it from a native perspective, well, no one has anything because everyone's living white. Right. And so we don't know how to live. So the colonizing aspect, when everyone says colonizers, I'm like, dude, it's funny because like everyone's talking about how like colonizers and how people are upset with white people as you drive that F-250.
Right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't want to sit here and be upset about things that are, or things that were when I'm benefiting from the things that are. And it doesn't make any sense to me to sit here and blame other people for things that like have nothing to do with me. Right. And my people enslaved other tribes. Yes. That's what I was going to get to. There were Cree. So like my tribe in specific, there were Cree that we took enslaved in the encampment. Okay. The Cree's a big nation, right? So they're individual tribes within the tribes themselves. Now, there's a lot of slavery that we took, and we don't look at it like slavery like back in those days. It wasn't slavery like how the blacks were enslaved. Like apparently, all slavery has been encompassed into this one like auction style like golden triangle between Africa and England and America. Yeah,
because that's the only slavery that's ever happened.
Product, right. We enslaved people and made them actual like less, not just less than human. Like it was different. Like they were had purposes when they were taken. Right. Whether that was living or dead, didn't matter. Right. I don't like using the term savage, but in its authentic word, it really was. Okay. So, but we're not the only tribe that ever did that. So there are a lot of tribes out there that did those kind of things because why? They didn't have the same value beliefs. They didn't have the same something. Or just because they had more horses and they had more women and they could get the bloodline to continue. Right. Remember that whole gay thing I was talking about earlier? Right. Well, that's a thing, man. So if you think about like our ancestors' blood is literally crying from the ground over the people that have lost and died, so that way the bloodline can continue by stealing other people's women, so we can have children with them because they're about to die. So you have a group of warriors, because like you think about back in those days, there would be a tribe that like had like 80% men and no chicks. Well, guess what they have to do in order to keep going? They have to find chicks. Right. So how are they going to do that? Other tribes. Right. Well, this is a traditional mindset. They can't just go over there and be like, hey, here's some flowers and some chocolate. Right. Yeah. Right. Look at this red-tailed hawk feather. That means Yeah. They don't go over there and be like, it doesn't work that way. They're taken. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so my uncle used to say to me, "Todo iglo vasho ie, yo pipi yelos iene," right? Which basically means like, just because we live white doesn't mean that we are white, right? And I've never really understood that until later on, right? But really, he wasn't wrong. Because I love this lifestyle. I love what we have. Sure. I don't know if I can handle living in the way that my ancestors did and having to go and, are we better off? Right. I don't have to go to I'm single now, right? But I don't have to go to the next town over to find some chick. I could probably find one in my own town. Right. You know what I'm saying? Sure. And if I want my bloodline to carry on, all I have to do is breed. Right. Right. Let's be real. Sure. So, right. Those days are gone, and I'm thankful that they're gone because it's so much better now than it was then. Right. And it's only because of the colonization of everything. So everyone who's sitting here complaining about the colonizers this and colonizers that, like I hated it. So when I was sitting on that mat with them, I kind of like expressed that, and they all had this opinion. I'm like, you guys are sitting inside of we're not sitting in a hut on the beach in Hawaii. We're sitting in like a 3-bedroom house, bro, with like freaking gas where people are cooking. It's like you don't have to build a fire outside. Right. Like this is. Right. It doesn't take 24 hours to make soup. No. You know what I'm saying? You got a microwave.
Right.
Well, you may not like the colonizers because of the kind of like cultural aspects in which they brought along and tried to kill your cultural aspects.
Right.
But you're the ones who decided to give up the cultural aspects.
Right.
We're the ones that decided to stop singing our songs and to stop dancing and to stop marking and to stop doing our art and to stop doing all. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They're the ones that stopped doing it.
Right.
Now, do I agree with all that stuff on a worship standpoint? Not now. But when I was younger, like I understood it. You know.
Right.
Well, when I got saved, it made a lot more sense to me when talking about early part of Romans when it talks about that they worship the creation over the creator. So why I didn't understand that, you know, that's one of the reasons why when I still to this day I still do sweat lodges. I go in preaching the word of Jesus, which is trippy.
Oh, nice.
Which is trippy to them.
Is that well received, or is that?
So you're not really saying Jesus, you're saying the creator, but you're using biblical terms within the creator because you got to speak the same way Paul did when he went into different areas.
Sure.
You got to know who you're talking to.
Right.
And a lot of these guys are like, they go into like a sweat lodge and they're talking about like the political aspect. These are all political things to them, right? Because community for them is political. And so you go into a sweat lodge and like it's one person can speak at a time and everyone goes inside of it and everyone's allowed to have a say, right? Super punk rock.
Yeah.
And everyone's allowed to have their say. You can say whatever they want, but when it's your turn to say, you can say whatever you want. So you listen to everybody, you know? And that's a problem that's not happening is that people aren't listening today either. That's another political aspect problem. Right. That no one's listening to one another to hear where people are coming from.
They're only interested in their own.
Again, their own sovereignty.
Right.
It's a huge problem for today.
It's the number one, I would say.
I would say it's the number one. Individual sovereignty.
Right.
And you go in, and I usually sit in. So the natives, like it's all four corners, like north, east, west, south, right? So the sweat lodge is always pointing to the sun rising in the east, like the door, right? And so I always sit in the west because it's usually the hottest spot, and no one wants to sit there, and because it's the farthest away from the door.
Right.
And normally by then you'll get like 4 or 5 people who are got a lot to say, and the elders it tends to be like younger to oldest.
Okay.
When it goes around, right? And when you're speaking in like a clockwise type.
Is that because they save like the wisest for the end?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Because all these youngsters say all this stupid stuff, right?
Right.
And so,
but they think it's brilliant.
They think it's gorgeous. Like never been heard.
But then they'll go back and think about it later, 10 years, 15 years down the road. They're like, what an idiot I was.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, that's all of us, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's bad religion too. I mean, there's stuff they said when they're in like 885 versus stuff they said later. They're completely different.
Oh, of course.
But that's age.
Right.
That's what happens when you get older. It's not that.
Right, because you change. You have to change. You cannot stay the same mindset as you were when you were 16.
Right.
You know?
And that's a Greek mind thought process completely.
Right.
Where you are progressing, but you still have to understand the traditional values of where you came from.
Right.
And I feel like the two are completely in polar opposites of one another, where they were they were working out before. So here's what's interesting to me, not to get on the religious aspect so far, but when Jesus actually came into history, he came at the perfect time because like 300-400 years before they started doing libraries and cataloging everything. And if he had come any earlier, then the Greek aspect of being able to speak into the New Testament wouldn't have happened. If he came any later, then the traditional mind thought process wouldn't have been able to be there.
Yeah.
So he came at the perfect time in history just so both political points of view can be seen and both religious points of view can be seen. Because
it's almost as if he knew what he was doing.
Almost as if he knew what he was doing. It's like it was set up.
Right. Yeah.
Just a thought.
It's almost like there was foreknowledge or something.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Well, predestined. Yeah. Let's get into that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's this whole thing about like, for me, that's the biggest issue is the sovereignty of today.
Sure.
And the individual sovereignty. And I was at that. I was talking to you earlier. I was at that Descendants punk show not that long ago, right? And I'm sitting there, and God, it was at the Ventura City Music Hall. It's a very nice venue. The sound of it was amazing. It was a good show. Everything was going around, and I'm sitting across one end of this raging mob of kids and people, and like, you know, middle-aged Gen Xers who are all getting along in this moment, right? Because they're all getting along over this one thing. All these different backgrounds, all these social economic backgrounds, all these political backgrounds, whatever you want to say. Everyone's got these different points of view, and you can see it happening in the room, but none of that matters in that moment.
Right.
And I look across all of that, and I'm like thinking, this is so amazing that people are actually getting along based around this one thing. It's awesome, right? And I'm grooving too because I love the song that's playing.
Right.
And I look across the whole thing and I see this like 20-some-odd-year-old person just grinding on their phone. And all I could think is like, wow, they're so uncomfortable with everything that's happening. You're missing out on the coolest thing ever.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you're just engaged in whatever your sovereignty is telling you to do, because that's more important.
Right. It's all about you.
Yeah, right.
As a side note, what was the song playing? Do you remember?
Sour Grapes.
Okay.
Sour Grapes.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I love that jam.
Yeah.
I'm bad with names of songs.
Yeah.
I'm good with the songs themselves.
That's Enjoy, right? Is that Enjoy or?
No, it's
or I Don't Want to Grow Up. I'm trying to think what album that was on.
I think it was Soma.
Soma. Oh, that's not a live album.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, the studio version that was on one. I think it was on Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the
So I heard it on Soma first.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, you do that sometimes. You associate. So
well, like for me, the first NoFX album I ever heard was I Heard They Suck Live.
Oh.
That was literally the first time I had ever heard NoFX. You know, but I love that album.
Yeah.
That to this day is my favorite live album of all time because it's funny. They play a lot of great songs in there. It sounds good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I love it. Yeah. So, but anyway.
No, I get it. So, but I was looking at this 20-some-odd-year-old and just being in their own world and voting close with there, and I was like, I realized at that moment that you can be in a room with 3,000 people and be alone in a second.
Right.
And I didn't come up with this idea of like selfishness. It's the words. I keep saying the word sovereignty for a reason. Mm-hmm. Because I truly believe that that's what it is. That they believe that they're self-sovereign. Mm-hmm. The individualism is so self-sovereign today. Now, all these political movements come out of those things. Whether it's the LGBTQ, which I have my issues with that. Mm-hmm. We want to talk about that. I'm glad to talk about it.
Yeah. We talk about whatever you want, man. This is open forum. So
the BLM scam, or any of those other things.
Right.
Whatever the political movement is, I'm fine with it. All right, so I said LGBT.
All right. That's it.
Here's my issue.
All right.
And I have a major one. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I've got a good understanding and the backing as to why I think this. Now, the L, the B's, and the G's don't have a problem with.
Right.
Whatsoever. You want to... Do you... And I even have a basis as to think why they are the way they are. But the T's are my issue.
And that's trans, right?
The trans, yeah. Okay. And anything else that's past that, because it's stupid.
I don't even know what they stand for after that.
It's exactly.
So many more.
To be honest, I don't think they do either.
Right.
They're just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah.
So there's this whole aspect. So if someone wants to be gay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm speaking from a libertarian point of view.
Sure.
Not from my faith-based point of view.
Right,
which
exactly.
is different.
Right. I'm glad you separate those because I do too.
Okay. So from a libertarian point of view, you have a right to exist. From a religious point of view, you're made in God's image. Mm-hmm. I'm going to respect you regardless of who you are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
Regardless of what you look like, your background, what you think you are.
Sure.
You're made in God's image.
Absolutely.
Not your sovereign individual, whatever you think it is.
Right.
So I'm going to respect you in that point of view. So I understand how someone can be gay and be lesbian. And I support that from a libertarian point of view. Mm-hmm. You having the right to do that all day long.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I will die for your right to be that person if that's the case. Mm-hmm. I completely do. Now, whether I agree with you being that person...
Right, because there's a difference between do I agree with that it's right and good versus do I think within our country it should be allowed.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I believe that you should have the inviolable right and the freedom to be that person if that's who you choose to be.
Right.
And I will die for you to be that person. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But the T's... for me, have nothing to do with the first three.
Right.
The L, the lesbians, gays, and bis. Mm-hmm. So, from a gay point of view, these are dudes that are into other dudes. From a lesbian standpoint, this is chicks that are into other chicks. From a bi standpoint, these are just people who don't know which way they want to go.
Just into everything.
They're just into whatever.
Right.
But they like both of these two things.
Sure.
Okay. I can understand that.
It's still connected to the same.
Still connected to the same genre.
Right.
But when you say you're a T, now you're telling me that you're a dude who's into other dudes, but wants to be a chick so you can become straight.
Yeah.
So, but you're not straight.
Right.
Well, which one is it? So, I feel like the T should not be lumped up with the other ones. I feel like they should be completely separate.
Right. Well, there's a lot of LGBs that feel the same way.
No,
they don't want the T on there.
I talked to quite a few of them.
Me too.
They're friends of mine.
Right.
And the two gentlemen that do my fish tank for me, amazing guys, gay couple. I didn't know they were gay for like 3 years. I've been tattooing them. All of a sudden, one of them says, "Hey, I was thinking about getting a unicorn tattooed." And I was like, "Oh, that's funny." And they're like, "No, I'm serious." I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "He's all, well, we're married, right?" And I'm like,
It's like 3 years later.
I've been tattooing on these guys for like ever.
Right.
They just look like, dude, they literally look like if you and me were hanging out every day. They just thought they were homies, right? Why? Because they're not throwing it out. That just, I would have never.
I thought they were homies, not homos.
Yeah.
Right.
That was good.
Yeah, thanks.
Very well done.
I thought for about 5 seconds on that
That
one.
was witty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just came boom,
that.
you know,
Boom.
just whoosh.
But they're super cool cats, man. Like,
Right.
I love these guys. Like, they're easy to talk to. We've talked about faith. We've talked about politics. We've talked about we agree on a lot of things, dude. They're gay.
And that's most of that community from my experience.
I agree.
Yet people don't understand that. They think that most of the LGB community is what they see on the TV all the time.
Flamboyant for
yes,
thing, yeah.
That's such a small minority of that population, and I hate that that's portrayed that way.
I think it's damning the actual thing.
It totally is.
Yeah.
It's just like anything, right? It's like from Christianity.
Okay.
What's being presented from the media about Christianity? I'm never represented. I never look at what they're presenting as Christianity. Yep, that's me. It's always never,
especially in movies,
right? Exactly. It's always the psychopath, right? Oh, that's the this guy believes in the Bible and he ends up killing everybody at the end of the movie because he's crazy.
Yeah, or just completely unreasonable person.
Exactly.
Right,
yeah. Right. Like he's got all this evidence to the contrary. And he's going, nope, I'm just going to keep on believing it because you know. But anyway, that's
a good Lord intended.
Right, exactly. It's horrible. But anyway, so yes, I agree with you that's what I run across mostly is guys like that that are intelligent. They can have a conversation about things like what we're talking about right now. They're not going to get all mad if people have differing views. I mean, as long as you're not attacking them.
And they know the difference.
Yes. Which is never my intent. No. I don't care what you believe. I'm not going to attack you.
Right.
I would love to discuss it, and maybe I'll disagree with some things, but I'm not going to say I hate you, or I hope you die, or I hope you burn in hell, and some of this other stuff that Christians are portrayed as saying.
Right.
No way. You know.
No, not at all. And the thing is that's interesting is that and that's another problem. And I agree that this is a polarized political aspect that's allowed this to happen. Is that just because you disagree with someone doesn't say that you're so polarized against them.
Yes, there's a difference.
There's a huge difference.
There's a difference. I hate that people don't see that.
And the reason why they think that way is because everyone believes they're sovereign.
Yes. See, I'm glad we keep coming back to that point.
Yeah.
Because it encompasses everything we're talking about.
It really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a worldview that people have.
Right.
And it infiltrates every aspect of their life.
Right. So, and what that also does is it damages a lot of other things, even dating, dude. Like dating has been the thing for me. That's because I'm single now.
Right. You're back on the market.
Yeah. You know what?
You want to drop your digits in case there's any single ladies listening today?
Cool. I don't get stuck with any hardcore Christians that think they're more holier than me. Get like an Ally Beth Stuckey.
Yeah.
But she'd ruin my life.
Yeah.
So I love that chick.
I do too. Yeah, I like her. Yeah. I never met her, but I like what she says on the radio. Yeah.
She's kind of hot.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm sure there's a couple girls that listen to your podcast that wouldn't mind hitting up. But anyway.
Sure.
I can't believe I just said that.
But anyway, we're off on the side tangent here.
You can keep that on. I know you're talking about editing, but you feel free to keep that on because it's hysterical.
I have a feeling that you wouldn't ask me to take anything out. That's not your way.
It's not my style. But the dating aspect. So it's so weird. So getting onto the dating aspect of like the he, she, her, him, well, I don't get it.
They, them.
I don't get any of that.
Right.
The pronoun aspect of our generation was like there, was, and happened.
Yeah.
You know, so like, did you go on a date? Yeah, it was over there. Yeah. When was it? Like last week.
Right.
What happened? Not much.
Yeah.
You know, and that's basically it.
Right.
So getting out there now, like there's a whole like demographic of just nonsense that's in the way.
Right.
And
I'd be scared to death to be in the dating world again.
God,
honestly, if anything ever happened to Bethany, I'd probably just be single the rest of my life.
Oh yeah, it's so difficult.
Right.
So I have friends that are still in this aspect of dating, but like how all of this political movements of how we're supposed to view each other's gender and ideology and all that kind of stuff has changed everything is that like it's allowed for someone to not to be able to make any kind of individual connections. Right. And because of the individual sovereignty that people think that they have, they feel like they don't have a necessity to create intimacy with anybody. Now, when I say intimacy, I'm not talking about the idea of like sexual performance. I'm talking about the idea of actually becoming on a deep down level of seeing where that person is individually, because my sovereignty is so important that if you don't agree with every aspect of my sovereignty, the intimacy cannot be available. In fact, that's always going to be unavailable, especially to the point of where your disagreement comes in.
Right.
So there's no, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like there's no aspect of where dating is dating anymore.
Right.
And so no wonder there's this giant hookup culture that's just killing our kids.
Yes.
And they don't even see it.
No, but then they do a little bit later, right? They realize they're not happy, alone, and they're like, "Why am I not happy?"
Right. When they're alone at my age, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, probably even before your age, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But yeah, and that's the thing, right? So like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you change that within the generation? Right. Now, I understand that I've been divorced and getting the idea of being in dating, but like churches have their own problems with it too, right? So there's almost like they treat you like you got cancer,
right?
You know, oh my gosh, you poor thing. These are women in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You poor thing. Like, I can't believe that that this happened to you. If you ever need a shoulder to cry on or something like
right, which is an open door for the wrong things, right?
And that's happening with both married women that are in the church and freshly divorced women within the church, right. And they treat you as if like something's wrong, because today's political aspect, and this is a political thing. It's not. They've taken something that's been God ordained in the Bible and turned it into a political movement within the church,
right.
And what it is that like the end game of being a full-fledged Christian is having children and being married. And like that's your end game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the two most influential people in the Bible were never married, which is Jesus and Paul.
Right.
Right. So they treat you as if like there's something wrong with you, and all they want to do is make sure that they don't feel unhinged by that. So they try to pick you up. They try to do this. And that's just not. There's a hookup culture within the church. So even on this aspect, and that is also politically based around what we see. So it may not be the LGBTQ, but it's definitely something else that's there.
Sure.
So on both ends of the spectrum are polarized within themselves. And I feel like there's this aspect of, again, individual sovereignty. Because if you don't look like me, then I don't feel like I'm close enough to God.
Right.
So if you don't have, because I used to look up to you. You had a family and you had kids and you were a good model. And Sabin, you check off every single one of those boxes. You're like 6'4", you have blue eyes, you make over $200,000 a year. Right. You seem to love the Lord. Like, why don't I need to get you hooked up with somebody?
Right. You shouldn't be alone.
Right.
Right.
You love kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You check off every single one of those boxes. Literally sitting in the 1%.
Right.
Right. Good luck with your OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Because you may not be I mean that seriously.
Sure.
Because like you may not be having OnlyFans like these chicks on the hookup culture on this side. They're like, well, I might as well get paid for being a hoe.
Right.
Right. But there's this thing called Hoeflation. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
Oh, well, let me educate you. So there's this thing called Hoeflation that's happening on every genre spectrum of individual. Right? So there's a class of system of people, right, from different genres and different backgrounds and different worlds. I mean, like viewpoints, like worldviews, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is that the men today, from what I'm realizing, are having to work 5 times harder for a woman that's 20 times worse than his grandmother.
Yeah, right.
Hoeflation.
Right.
And so this is another political problem for me because...
Yeah. Did you come up with that term, by the way?
No.
Okay.
No,
right.
But I agree with it.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Makes sense.
Right. So, but this goes all the way from one end of the spectrum polarizing to another, because you have the aspect of like people in the church, right, that have this viewpoint of how dating and all this stuff should be. It's marginalized. Right. And you have this hookup culture on the exact opposite polar end of the spectrum. And within those things, there's Hoeflation. And the sovereignty of how we view ourselves within our relationships and lack of intimacy dictates on how Hoeflation rises or lowers.
Wow. And you are saying ho-flation.
As in skank, slut.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So skankflation.
Yeah.
But ho-flation sounds better.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you weren't saying hope-flation.
No, ho.
Yeah, totally different. Hope and
garden,
ho.
like garden hoe.
Totally different. Okay.
Yeah, Hoeflation.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I figured, but I just...
So depending on the So think about it. Depending on the group of people that you're with, the genre, we as men have to work 5 times harder to get a woman that's 20 times worse than our grandmother.
Right. Because there's just not as much supply out there.
That's what their expectations are so high without any intimacy.
Right. Well, and I've said this so many times. I've talked to people, younger guys, or even guys our age, that they say to me, they come to me all depressed and they're all upset, and they're like, I just want to find a good woman that I can have a serious relationship with and maybe even marry. And I said, oh man, well, where have you been looking? Well, I'm in the bar every night and I'm going to the clubs and I said, dude, do you really think that you're going to find, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but why would you go somewhere like that where most of the clientele is looking for someone to be with just that night? Right? Let's get a couple drinks in us and go home with somebody different every night, wake up, do the same thing with someone else the next night.
Yeah, wipe the vomit off your face.
Yes, right? Yeah. You're not going to find, most likely, you're not going to find what you are looking for in a place like that. Right? So in the sense, well, where should I go, Ryan? I don't have the answer to that, Right. But I know that's not the place unless you're looking for hookup culture. You will find that there. If that's what you're going for, then keep going for it.
And that's actually, even for today's standards, that's actually a middle road hookup culture. Because hookup culture is actually done through these phones now.
Right. It's totally different.
Like you don't even meet anybody. There's no game anymore.
Right.
But that's like caveman standards where I'm going to go to the bar and buy some drink and like knock them over their heads and drag them to my house and then hopefully they'll be willing to let me in. Or you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
That's like old way of thinking. Now it's just like it's swipe left, swipe right. Oh, I get to swipe right and I get to hook up.
Right.
That's crazy.
You don't have to pretend like you don't know which way the swipe is. It's okay.
I really don't.
Wait, I think it's wait, left, right. Oh, which I don't know.
I don't do it.
Yeah, I never swiped before, so.
I'm either up or down, so.
Yeah.
Highs and lows, baby.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just a thing, right?
Right.
And like Christian mingle is the same exact thing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I mean,
there's no difference. You put the name Christian on it like it's some holy thing or something. Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's so lame.
Man. Yeah.
But yeah, that's again, it leads back to the individual sovereignty.
It does.
Believes that they're individually sovereign.
It does, and I was just saying the other day about you can take all the principles out of Scripture. If you simply treat others as better than yourselves. If every person on the planet had that philosophy and actually lived by that philosophy, could you imagine how different things would be? It's the opposite of what you're saying with the sovereignty thing.
Right.
Because then you would be putting yourself on the floor and putting everybody on the planet above you.
Right.
But everybody would be doing that. Right? So you're just going to have you're going to have people fighting over how they can help each other.
Right.
No, I want to help that guy. No, I want to help him. It's like
different world.
Yeah. But instead, it's not who can I step on to get what I need.
Right.
Who can I hurt in order to make sure I'm fulfilled? Who can I, back to the trans thing and all that, who can I force into my ideology so I feel accepted?
Right.
No, can't you just do your thing? No. I got to force everyone to feel the way I feel.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Because the acknowledgement and the acceptance allows my sovereignty to reign.
Exactly. Right? And that's where I have the issue. Like, and I've talked about this a million times on here. I'm not going to spend too much time on it just because, again, I've talked about it so many times and people probably think it's just the only thing I want to talk about. But my whole issue with the trans thing is, look, if you're a biological male and you want to live your life as a woman, you go right ahead. I support your right to do so.
Right.
But don't come to me and tell me I have to call you a woman and go against my own beliefs and reality and thoughts in order for you to feel accepted. Now you're bringing me into your reality. I'm fine with you having your reality. Just leave me out of it.
Okay, so like, you're bringing up a good point.
Yeah.
Not to get on this too, but like,
sure.
My favorite part about myself is not the one thing I want to chop off.
Right.
I'm just saying as a man.
Sure.
Like.
Right. You mean your ear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My left one.
Yeah.
Like cut my nose off to spite my face.
Right? Yeah.
It's not my thing, right?
Sure.
So, and I talk to other people and they say, well, like, I feel like I was born this way. And I'm like, there's that conversation between, whether is it nature versus nurture, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
Well, here's my point of view on that. I actually believe since we are born into sin that they are born that way. That just happens to be their sin.
I'm right there with you. I 100% agree. That's what I always say too.
Yeah.
It's no different than a guy who maybe has inclinations towards, I don't know, he has some sex drive or he's
like feet.
Or something like that. Or even like a married man who's thinking of other women.
Yeah.
It's still sin, right? But he struggles with it no different than somebody.
Sex?
Exactly. Right.
Right?
Yes.
That's the other thing that's happening socially, that no one's even talking about premarital sex being a sin anymore.
I know.
Because the tilt has been tilted so heavily on what is debacle. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a plan. If I was the devil, I would get...
Well, this is going a weird direction.
Right? Which I've been a couple times.
Yeah.
But if I was the devil, I would tilt the boat to one side so heavily that whatever was on this side didn't seem like that big of a deal, even knowing that was still a sin.
Right.
So if I would make this sexual exploitation so drastic and so heavy and so overwhelming that this one thing that's still a sin is so completely overlooked as not being a sin because this is so vulgar.
Yes.
So,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I struggle with that.
Sure.
Right. So.
Well, there's people that take the premarital sex thing and they say, "Oh, I've already been married, so it's technically not premarital sex because I was already married and now I'm divorced, and now I'm just going to sleep with everybody because I've already been married. So it's technically not premarital sex.
But what about?
It's postmarital sex."
Right. I've had this one where I was talking to a gentleman that I was working with the other day, and he was like, "Well, I'm not cheating on my wife since I'm having sex with my ex-wife."
So, currently married to somebody else.
Right.
But he's still sleeping with his ex-wife.
Well, he'd already done it.
Wow. Yeah, he's like, I've already been with her before. So, I mean, what's the difference?
I've already been there, had that.
Wow.
Just because it's not at my address doesn't mean that it's not.
Dude.
Right?
That's,
It's crazy to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, again, sovereignty. Mm-hmm. So, the first rule of satanic principles, do what thou will.
Right.
And that's literally, I mean...
Which is why the devil got kicked out of heaven.
Yeah.
Right?
Do what you want, man. That seems to be like the, you do you, boo.
Right.
So, like, that seems to be the way that people are just taking everything today.
Yeah.
The political aspects.
Right.
So, as far as, like, my political, points of view, like, how I think things should go. Now, if you want to talk about, like, locally and, like, how I feel, there's some things I feel locally that we could do in this area to help build up our individual communities. I do believe that we should be acting on a community basis, on a regular basis, right, based upon how we view our worldview is.
You mean that we should consider the wants of everybody as a whole as opposed to individually?
Yep.
So what do you do though?
Again,
do you
that's
do
traditional mindset.
Sure, but do you do I always picture if I'm governing and I have this dilemma, what if you have a percentage that wants one thing and a percentage that wants the opposite? You can't please both. Do you go with the higher percentage?
Depends on the percentage.
Do you do a vote? What if it's 60-40? Something like that, But you have a vote and the one thing wins over, but barely. Then what do you do, right?
So it's a really broad umbrella.
Yeah.
Of I can think of 5 or 6 different things
that could fit that.
That could fit that narrative.
Right.
Okay. Homelessness.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say
that's a good one. Yeah.
Do homeless deserve to live? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Is homelessness a problem? Yes, it is. Is homelessness the problem? No, it's not. Mm-hmm. Mental issues are the issue.
Sure.
Drugs and mentality. If you see any of the homeless people, it's not like people that just don't have homes.
Right.
These are people that are making decisions with their lives that choose for them to be.
That they end up that way by their own. Yeah. Most of the time. Not all the time. Most of the time.
So that being said, do we do the California route and we give them clean crack pipes so they can smoke their crack?
I just heard that this morning. I was like, are you kidding me? That new dispenser they have?
So this is something I see, because my shop is downtown.
Right.
Like some of the bed, and they're always floating in my area.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't agree. Being an ex-drug addict and someone who's been in and out of being locked up before I got saved and coming from a really hard background.
Right.
I don't believe in babying them. I just don't.
Right.
I believe that the more that you entitle them to feel like they don't have to change, the more deeper they're going to get into not feeling like they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a thing for me.
Right.
So 60% of the people say that we need to clean up the homeless. 40 people say leave them alone. Okay. Or to enable them. So then I want to know what enabling means.
Right. I would want to know what cleaning up means.
Right.
That's what I was just going to say when you said clean up the homeless versus leave them alone. Well, what does clean them up mean?
Right.
Does it mean haul them off to prison? Does it mean...
No, you can't do that either.
Provide some kind of facility, but even then, you either have to force them to stay there or they have to go on their own accord. And most of the time, they're not going to go on their own accord.
Most of the time, they can't understand what the word accord means.
Right. Well, that too.
So, you follow me? So, there's an issue there.
Right.
So, to me, the problem isn't with... The problem that we're talking about is now a Band-Aid issue.
Mm-hmm.
The real issue happens before they get there.
Correct.
So
you have to go back to the source and fix the source.
So here in Santa Maria we have some issues, right? There's homelessness is starting to take over. It's starting to look like the rest of California.
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to see it a lot more and more.
It's becoming like a big city around here, like in LA or San Francisco.
And I want to be flat honest and tell a story. There was a homeless guy that was getting high in the alley right behind my shop. I caught him, kicked him out, told him don't come back. If he came back, there'd be consequences.
Right.
Came back the other day and I caught him masturbating in the alley.
Oh, beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did I tell him?
I don't know.
I told him there'd be what if he came back?
Oh, consequences.
So what do you think he got?
Oh, if he came back at all, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but he wasn't doing drugs.
No, but this time he's masturbating.
Right. Still doing something he shouldn't be.
In front of girls that walk through the thing.
Beautiful.
Right?
Nice.
So guess what he got? He got consequences. So do you know what I did?
I don't.
I grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and I dragged him out to the center of the street and I tossed him in the street and I kicked him. And I said, if you come back again, you're going to get worse. Right? And he came back again.
Wow.
Hold on. He came back again. And I said, why are you here? And he goes, I'm here to apologize.
Dang, dude.
And I said, because there's a way of handling them.
Yes.
Because I used to be one of them.
Right.
In the same exact way that my dad, or my stepdad, I should say, or my mom would get my attention because I was doing something stupid, sometimes you have to get their attention. Sometimes they're pushing the buttons to see how far you'll go. Right. Now, do I think being physical with them was a good idea? No, but I could see the situation in that moment.
Sure.
Does it mean I do that with every single person that's like that? No. Because sometimes I walk up and I hear them, I talk to them, I get to know them. But you know that dude, he needed an awakening. So he came back and he apologized. He introduced himself. We sat outside. We talked. I got to know him. He came from Santa Cruz. He's kind of stuck in the area. Doesn't know where else to go.
Right.
He feels really sorry about what he did. He understands that, like, now that he's a little bit sober right now, he doesn't know where to go from this point. I stopped. I prayed for him. I had my shop hand go get him some food.
Nice.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But he needed to be woke up first.
Of course.
Now, I don't advocate on shaking the crap out of somebody.
No, but that works.
It worked for him.
It worked for him, yet everybody in the areas where we're trying to fix this problem would frown on what you just said. They would say, how dare you do that? Who do you think you are to do that?
So you know what I did after that? I went up and I said, so here's a meeting that's going to happen. You're going to go with me to that meeting a little bit later after we go. So I stopped what I was doing for the day. I walked with him to the 1600 Club. I went inside and did his first NA meeting.
Nice.
That was over 3 months ago. Dude's still sober.
Nice.
So see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Has nothing. It all started with a little bit of a check.
Right.
Now there's a lot of other people that I've come into contact with, again, because I come from that background. I know how to speak into that background. And the problem that we're having is we're having people trying to speak into a situation that they know nothing about. And that's what's wrong with our individual local politics.
Right.
It's really difficult for someone who is a mayor who's never been homeless to talk about what it means to be homeless.
Sure. Just because you don't have the experience, you don't understand.
No, I'm not expecting everybody to be there.
Sure.
But if you have no hands-on experience about what it means to deal with them on an individual basis, right? Or what does it mean to be a sheriff and know what, and create a good institution for the people that are locked up in this custody? Because everybody that's in the jail is in the sheriff's jurisdiction. It's a sheriff's custody.
Right.
You're under his law. One individual person. He makes the rules about who comes in and sees you, who doesn't, the chaplaincy, and all that kind of stuff. So right now here in Santa Maria, we have 2 jails for our county, right? Main jails. There's a couple of substations, but there's 2 main jails. There's one off Black Road here in Santa Maria, and the other one's in Santa Barbara. Well, the one on Black Road is actually fairly new. There's still no chaplains going in the scene there. That place has been open for over 2 years now.
Wow.
Why? It's because the person who's in charge of the sheriffs here doesn't have any idea what it means to actually create the money, the subsidies to put aside to have more people on call or more people on duty, so that way they can go in there and actually preach to those people. So Santa Maria is doing what? Getting worse. So how do you affect the homeless population that does something stupid? Because eventually the homeless get arrested, whether they're doing drugs in public or masturbating, something stupid. Right? They break into something, they get so hard up that they want to get off the street, so they'll go to jail because that's what they do. I'm going to commit a crime so I get arrested, so at least I have a night to sleep off the streets.
Right. And probably get a meal and the whole deal, right?
So a meal, the whole deal. Sometimes they get some more time than that. They get like 2 weeks. Well, that's the best time to talk to them because now they're sober.
Right.
So if you don't have a chaplain going in and trying to produce something in there, then how do you reach those people?
Right. You don't. You put them back on the street and they end up right back in the same spot.
Figure out how to get worse.
Right.
So you're not targeting from the right point of view. The homelessness is a byproduct of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying?
I agree with you completely. Absolutely. Right.
So here in Santa Maria, 1 out of every 10 people is a felon.
Dang, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That means 10% of our population has felonies.
Wow.
And what I think is what's wrong is that there's nowhere for them to get a leg up on anything. The Santa Maria is it's an agricultural town, it always has been, but it has so much more availability for something more. And we're already looked at as like kind of like the armpit of the Central Coast, us and Lompoc.
Right.
So even though the people that live here in Santa Maria, we know we're not. We're just the biggest area.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But what we definitely aren't is we're not Pismo, and we're not slow, and we're not touristy, and we're not that. That's not our identity here.
Right.
But what our identity should be is how do we get ROP programs, recreational occupational programs, for people that are felons. And if you have 10% of your population that's there, how do we get people to stop looking at going to college and start going to trade schools? And why can't we make ourselves a trade school mecca here?
There you go.
Why don't we start putting, because what does it say? Idle time is the devil's playground, right?
Right.
And why do people turn to Proverbs says that thieves because they have nothing to do with their hands. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So what do we do with them? Let's give them something to do.
Yeah.
And keep them out of debt.
Right.
Right. Give them a career.
Right.
Make a mecca for people from the entire Central Coast to call from, and give ourselves something to do besides agriculture.
Right.
Because there's a bleeding agricultural slavery that's happening here with the field workers and the immigrants that people aren't even talking about.
Right.
But we have so much available land to be able to create something here that no one's working at. That would be one of the things that I would work on, specifically with the fairgrounds here. So the far back 3 lots where the is individually owned by someone else. They own the property.
Okay.
Where they keep all the animals for the there. So that's owned by someone else.
Okay.
I want to say it's owned by the by Taiki, the people that own the Far Western. And so I want to believe that they own that property. The rest of that is county subsidy. So what I would want to work on, if ideally, like things rub a magic lamp, right?
Right.
Is I would approach the Elks, and I would come to the Elks, and I would say, we need to build into the fairgrounds, like out here. And there's property out here in this section that's actually county subsidized property. That
you mean like in the Orchid area? You mean?
No, like literally off the freeway.
Oh, okay.
Right by the Elks Rodeo.
Gotcha. Where the paintball is.
Where the paintball is. That whole section out there where it's kind of flat.
Right.
So all that area is actually county property that's being leased out.
Wow.
Even the farmland that's out there by the side of it is still county area. It's being leased out to a farmer.
Nice.
So they're making money off of that. I would want to change that. I would think that making like 6 soccer fields and creating a venue area for an outdoor or even a parking section, and then creating like a 4,000 to 5,000 in-house arena right there, and making the fairgrounds out in that area, and creating something that could rival Mid-State, and then turning all of our old fairgrounds, which is in the middle of the ghetto. No one wants to go there.
Right.
You can't get anyone to actually utilize it. They don't want to utilize it because they don't trust the area.
Because of the location, yeah.
I mean, it's bad.
Right.
So why not turn that into an ROP section?
Nice.
That could be the most massive trade school that we have on the Central Coast, if not in California.
Right.
Like Southern California.
Yeah.
It could all be centralized in that one spot, HVAC, you name it, it could be there. The armory on the other side could actually be turned into, what we don't have here is we have a couple homes, but like 80, so I'm chaplain for the county, right? So I get these figures every once in a while. Santa Maria has the largest domestic violence problem in the United States.
Really?
Per capita.
Really?
The 80% of our crimes are domestic violence.
Dang, if you had even said California, I would have been shocked.
No. In the United States.
Country.
Per capita.
Dang, dude.
Because it's a cultural thing, because of all the, because of the immigrants that are, the specific type of immigrants that are here, right? Are Oaxacans. And women are just abused. They're just abused left and right, right? And because we have a field worker culture here, the Oaxacans are the ones that are mostly here because they're lower to the ground. They get to pick more, and they're utilized here. They're wanted here.
Oh yeah.
Like, we have a huge Oaxacan population here,
right?
Which is different than like regular immigrants. So that being said, domestic violence is our biggest issue that we have. You ask any police, they'll say domestic violence is our biggest problem that we have here.
Right.
So, but we have no battered women shelters. Well, what about men that are? Because that's a thing too, and no one talks about it. Battered men's shelters, because there's such thing as being abused abuse male.
It's probably less common, but it's out there, right?
It's out there.
Right.
I mean, I know of 3 people from the top of my head that I can think of that have been in abusive relationships.
Right.
Me being one of them. So, and I'm a huge man.
Right.
So, like, who's going to believe that?
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've been in an abusive relationship like that where I was the one that was battered.
Right.
And because you're a man, you don't think that you're being battered. You just think they're just acting out of control.
Right.
No, they're swinging on me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, so that being said, like those armory sections over there can actually be translated into those specific things because they're gated, they're behind fence, they're the way of getting in and out to them. It's a completely protected region area.
Yeah.
There's no way. This whole town needs to transfer. And if you can actually start a tourism aspect out there, because we're stuck between Santa Barbara and San Luis, we could, with an arena and those kinds of things. Well, how do we get the money to pay for that? Here in Santa Maria, as a business owner, I own 2 businesses. Right. And I pay the same amount of capital tax for business tax as Target.
Wow.
Or Home Depot.
Really?
Yeah, because it goes by a certain equation. So I make over $200,000 a year. I'm in the same tax bracket as those corporations. So I pay the same. They pay the same amount of money for me. So someone comes every single year and looks inside my shop and they say, "I think your value of your business is this, this, and this," and they ask me for what my taxes are, and obviously they can get them, so I have to be all right on that. And then they give me a percentage based on what it was. Well, Target pays the same amount I do,
even though they're a huge corporation that has stores all over the country.
So we're paying $3,000 in city tax every year. Really? Wow. That's it. I pay $3,000 in city tax.
Right. So you would take the corporations, the franchises, and you would have them pay more in taxes that way, and you would use that money for that.
Right. And then you would approach the Elks and say, "This is something we want to do for the Elks."
Right.
And make it an Elks jurisdiction. That way they're the ones who are in charge of it.
Yeah.
Through county subsidy land.
Nice.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude. I'd vote for you, man.
It would energize this area.
Right.
On one end, you'd have money coming in. You'd be growing out east, right? Instead of north or south.
Right.
You start growing it because that'd be better, because that's really what the city should be doing, is growing east. Growing east, creating something that's in between the 2 places. It can rival Mid-State Fair because now you have an arena, you have an open area, you have the Elks Rodeo, you have concert events, you could have anything you possibly want. Ice hockey team, X Games, right in the middle of the Central Coast.
Right.
Where there's perfect weather.
Yes.
Year round.
Right.
Genius. See what I'm saying?
Genius.
On the other end of town, you're creating a whole other industry to get people that are going to actually change the lives of your community. That's what we need more of.
Right.
What our generation is, Gen Xers, is that we're the best generation. We're the best generation to do things without anyone's help. The problem is we're now at this age where we need people's help. Now millennials suck at that.
Right.
But Gen Zers, they all want to be a part of something, but they don't know how to build anything. That's my general feel about Gen Zers. I feel like they all want to be a part of something, but they don't know how to build anything.
Right. Or they might not even know what they want to be a part of.
Right.
They just have that longing.
They just have that longing.
Right.
They're perfect for us.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's get into some spiritual stuff. All right. In the last little section here, we got about 40 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So,
chit-chatting, huh?
Yeah, you know. So just kind of walk me through. I mean, I already know some of your story, but kind of walk me through. You obviously didn't. You're like me. You didn't grow up in the church.
Oh no.
So like, take me back to the first basically your salvation experience, or what led to that kind of thing.
So,
or what your beliefs were before that. Were you an atheist growing up, or were you more of just like a cultural believer kind of thing?
My mom was a Christian.
Okay.
She went down a lot of paths before I was born to try a bunch of different stuff. So she comes from that era of like trying to figure out where spirituality comes from. I feel like our generation now is doing the same thing. Everyone's spiritual, but they don't know why. So after knowing that she's a Christian, she's kind of raised me with that always being a background.
Right.
Whether I believe that or not is a whole other story. Like, I believed it. It's not like I didn't always believe in God, but there's a lot of years of my life I hated him.
Right. Which is different than not believing in him.
Right. So it's not that I didn't believe in him, I just hated him. So like, atheist, no. Rooting for the wrong team, yeah. I did that for a lot of years.
Right. Did your mom take you to church growing up, or was it more?
Tried to.
Okay.
She tried to. And it wasn't the hypocrisy of other believers. I mean, I could understand that.
Right.
Because I could understand the hypocrisy of claiming to be one thing in public or in church and then being something else completely different in public. And I can understand that, right? It was, you hear the question that people say all the time, like, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people?
Right.
That's really not the question they're asking. What the question they're asking is, why does God allow bad things to happen to me?
To me, yeah. Right. Because the question is, who's good people?
Right.
Who is these people you're talking about?
Again, sovereignty. You're the one that's allowed to choose who's good and who's not.
Exactly.
Right? So, like, and that's really what the question was. I mean, I was molested for a lot of years as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Between the ages of like 8 and 12. Me and my cousin and someone else who lived across the street and their brother and older sister and my uncle and their dad from across the street. Like, it was a thing.
Wow.
And no one really talks about it. Right. There were like 2 surviving members out of that whole thing, or 3 out of that whole thing. And there was a grooming aspect. There was that whole thing. So at first, when it's happening to you, you're like, this is horrible. But years go by, and you're like, kind of looking forward to it.
It's because you're used to it.
Because you're used to
part
it.
of your life now.
That formed my idea of, how is this happening? Like, fornication's happening, and sexual deviancy that's happening in my life, and these bad things that aren't necessarily so bad, and why God said it's so bad, but like I was still angry from the fact that I was being, that I was raped as an 8-year-old.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Angry about those things, and like when you are molested for that many years, there's this part of you that learns to like, I'm willing to put up with this this horrible aspect of whatever this is over here, as long as I get to have this one thing for me and hold it as sacred. And that wired me to think that way about my faith. I'm willing to put up with all this stupid torture and nonsense as long as I got this one little thing. So like being Satanist, right? I'm willing to put up with the stupidity and the pain and the hurt and the anguish and the suffering and all those kinds of things as long as I get to have my sin.
Right.
And being broken from that and free from that was huge for me. I don't really explain it like that to a lot of people.
Right.
But that's really what it was.
When you say freed from that, did that happen when you found the Lord, or did it happen before that?
Well, no, in the moment that I got saved.
Okay.
Some people, I know conversion for a lot of people, we can talk about this for Blue in the Face, how does conversion happen. But for me, it was a takeover. And I was sitting in the jail cell, and I knew I wasn't getting out. I was doing a bunch of stupid stuff, and I got caught. When I got caught, there was 5 different counties, ATF and FBI. Those were all the agencies that were on the bill.
Dang.
I got 1,182 charges.
Dang, dude.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, I had my own RICO case.
So what was your sentence? I mean, how long were you?
Well, that's the thing, is that like they were just throwing stuff that they knew that I had done, but they couldn't prove it, and they were just trying to build a case against me. But they'd rather have me off the street than like,
Right.
And it was so many different things, from like home invasions to distribution of C4 to like, it wasn't like drugs. It was like real criminal stuff. For someone to be distributing C4 and like manufacturing of firearms,
right,
and you know what I'm saying, fencing of stolen goods and organized crime division, and like for the ATF and the FBI to be 2 of the 7 agencies and 5 different counties involved.
Yeah,
I was a criminal. I wasn't a drug addict or a gangbanger.
Right.
I was a criminal.
Right.
There's a difference. When they picked me up, they were like, "We've been looking for you for like 4 years. Like, we know who you are, but didn't know who you were." I'm like, dang, I was that good.
Right. You almost take pride in it.
Right.
I'm well known around here.
Yeah. Suckers finally got me.
Right.
But like, it was different. When I got saved, like all that anger and hatred, and like everyone wants to talk about like, oh, I did all these crimes, but the crime really wasn't the issue when I got saved. Like, I was willing to die in prison as long as I was happy, saved, and loved.
Right.
I didn't know what being loved meant.
Right.
So when I got saved, like all that anger and hatred and like animosity and history and legacy just went away.
Right.
I mean legacy when I say it. It all just disappeared. Like I didn't have any, like, in a second, just gone.
Just instant.
Gone.
And how long had you been in when that happened?
It had been my 4th time being incarcerated.
Okay.
Oh, 5th. I forgot about YA when I was a juvenile. So 5th time being incarcerated, and it happened when I was in a holding cell in isolation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there was just you and God. There was no
See, that's the thing.
other person preaching to you?
No, that's the thing, right?
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm a chaplain now. So when I tell you this, it's kind of a weird story.
Right.
But like the story in itself was, I was sitting in a jail cell. The phone wasn't working because I'm in an isolation tank. They tried to build a case against me and pick up as many people as they can that are on the same thing as me. Like they're trying to screw me over. Get someone to say something so you can get more. I wasn't picked up by myself. They picked up like 5 dudes at the same time. Right, all in different counties.
So they weren't even connected to you in any way, just different. Okay.
Yeah, like they were, like we were connected, but they weren't. I was an independent contractor for a motorcycle club, which means that like if a motorcycle club wanted something done, but they didn't want it attached to the name of their club, they would call me.
Oh wow.
And so that says something,
right?
If they wanted money collected from someone, but they didn't want to attach to their club, they called me. If they wanted someone collected, they called me.
Right. You were like the mafia boss that they were calling in to. In
some weird way,
to
because
do the job.
like I was working for them, but not working with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in a tank, and all of a sudden the door just swings open, and this dude comes in, and he just sits down, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm tripping.
Right.
And he says, you're going to sit down and you're going to shut up. And you're going to listen to everything I have to say. And like, I never let anybody really talk to me like that. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, normally I'd have just been like, what the? You know what I mean? Like, and just towed off on them, you know?
Right.
Oh, you're bad. Like, you're in here with me.
Right.
You know? I'm not in here with you. And I did, though. Like, something just, like, hand in my chest, sat me down, and I just sat there, and he told me everything from, like, not growing up with a dad, memory of when my mom's hand bled.
He told you stuff about your own life?
Yeah, man. And told me about my molestations, about Patrick shooting himself when we were freshmen in high school.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
How that affected me, how the mom slapped me in front of everybody.
Was he a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that part of the story.
And just all these pivotal moments, right? And then he just sat there and he said, you know, God's been trying to reach you this whole time. And in that moment when he said that, like all these like fluttering memories of like one of my best friend's mom always speaking the gospel to me whenever I came over for spaghetti dinners, or like just being there, like those kind of moments, just kind of like seeds that were planted, like, and I just ignored them, you know? And I just, like, all those things kind of flooded. Yeah. If that makes any sense. They all kind of flooded at one time. And the door swung open. Now, this isn't the movies, bro. Like, when the movies, it's like, guard, let me out. And, like, some guard's waiting there to let this. It doesn't work that way, dude. When you get put somewhere, you're stuck there.
Yeah.
But the door swung open, and this dude just walked out. And he's just like, you can either live in here or die in here, but either way, you're in here. And I was like, what? And the door shut, and then, like, I'm kind of tripping.
Is this a guy you'd ever seen before?
No.
No.
Never.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what was that? Then, like, maybe I mean, there's no clock, so I don't know, but, like, half hour, an hour later, I hear the again. And the door swings open, and it's a CO with a dude that I was locked up in YA with, named Matt. And Matt goes, what's up, Save? What's up, dude? And he's got, like, lunch. Like a brown lunch, right? He's all, it's good to see you, bro. And I'm like, this is where it's good to see me?
Right.
And before I would have been like, yeah, man, you know, they got me. I'm going to be down for a little bit, you know.
Right.
Don't trip on me, homie. Nothing wrong, you know. Let everyone know that I'm good. Like saying something stupid like that.
Right.
You know, like.
Something cliche.
To try and, like, hold up the fact that, like, I don't want to cry.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just didn't do that this time. Like, literally the words were like, this is where it's good to see you. This is where it's good to see me. Not like, and like, I would have never had that before. It would have been not a thought process to me, like, whatsoever. And he throws me the lunch, dude, and it's like some paper sack bag, like a brown bag. I know it's in it, dude. It's either like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich where, like, they take all the peanut butter and all the jelly and they mix it into a vat, so you can't really even taste the jelly anymore.
It's just one
like
substance.
It's like, yeah, it's like peanut butter with, like, snail trails. You know what I mean? Like, it's either that or it's like a bologna sandwich with, like, it's either an apple or a pear, but you can't really tell which one it is.
Right.
Because it just can't. And like a non-fat milk, right?
Yeah.
A little stupid non-fat, like a producer's non-fat milk.
Right.
And I know it's in the bag, so I put it down, dude. And the first time in my life, I actually, like, earnestly prayed. But it was, like, silent. I'm like, God, what are you doing?
Right.
And I put it down and I went to get on the phone that wasn't working a second ago, and now it has a dial tone. And I picked the phone up and I called my mom's number. Now, there's no money on the books. There's no, like, again, it's not the movies, bro. You know what I mean? Like, it's never, this shouldn't be happening.
Right.
But there's a dial tone. I call, the number goes through. And it's my mom. And I'm like, Mom, I'm locked up. Oh, mijo.
Oh, did she not even know you were in yet?
Oh, no. I just got picked up.
Oh, this was the same day that you got picked up?
Yeah, within, like, I just got processed and put somewhere.
And then the guy came in and talked to you?
Yeah.
And then your friend came in.
So that doesn't happen, bro. Like, they don't do that with people until they, like, people just don't randomly, like, chaplains.
Right.
You don't go into someone who just showed up.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Like,
right.
It does not work that way. Like, at all. Like, I've been there, I've seen it. Like, it just doesn't.
Right. Because now you're on the other side of it, being a chaplain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, I know what it's like. I know the protocols that come with it. Like, they have to evaluate and house somebody before they allow you to talk to them. They don't let you talk to someone in holding.
Right.
It compromises everything. Because what if you said something or they gave you a note, or, like, it can compromise the entire, like, judicial structure. So with someone who's in holding, they don't see chaplains. They just don't.
Right.
So who is this fool?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm talking to my mom, and my mom's like, son, when are you going to stop and give your life to Jesus? And I'm like, what's with this Jesus fool?
Right.
You know? And I'm like, dude, this fool comes in here telling me about Jesus, and God's been reaching out to me, and how Christ died for my sins. And even the things that I've done right now, I can be forgiven. And my mom's on the other end of this thing saying, like, when am I going to stop and give my life to him?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, maybe right now, I don't know. So I stopped and I sat down and I prayed again for the second time. And I just felt like this, like, stirring in my heart, dude, of, like, something was, like, moving me or, like, impressing on me, right? And so I'm like, okay, so, and it's stirring in my heart, and I said, all right, Lord, you want to do this? Let's do this. I mean, my best efforts have got me right here, right? I'm just done. You want me? You got me. Whatever that, I'm worthless.
Right. You're at the bottom.
I'm worthless, dude. I got nothing to offer anyway.
Right.
I'm blessed of the poor in spirit, right?
Yep.
That's like the first step of the Beatitudes, right? Like, poor in spirit means, like, the word poor is like pitos in Greek, right? Yeah. So, like, it means to, like, be broken or bankrupt, right? I was in that moment.
Nice.
And second, I said, you got what you got. The second that happened, it was just all the anger and all the hate and all the rage just gone.
And this is right after you got off the phone with your mom?
Right after I got off the phone with my mom.
Wow.
And this overwhelming sense of, like, love that I didn't know. You hear the word,
right?
You know, but, like, you don't really know, dude. But, like, this overwhelming sense of, like, love just pops up, and, like, there's, like, this comfort that's unknown. I just never, and I haven't experienced anything like it since. It just overwhelms me, and I just cried, just bawled.
Yeah.
And I literally was bankrupt. I had nothing to offer. And for some obscene reason, there was this peace and this love and this mercy that could be had from someone who I didn't deserve it from.
Right.
So what is that? So I didn't know. Well, they're taking me, and I'm, like, tripping. They're taking me from the substation that I was locked up at now to the main jail, which is, you know, an hour long, like, bus ride away. You know, and I'm on the bus, and they put me in, like, one of the stupid, like, psych ward things, because I'm like, where was that dude? Right?
So, like, they think you're crazy.
So they think I'm nuts. Right. Because, like, no one came and talked to me. No, bro. Someone came into my cell and talked to me. No, dude, no one was in there. So now they think I'm crazy. Right. So now I'm on Puff Unit.
Nice.
And so I'm like, all right, cool. So like, I'm in this cage, all freaking shackled up, like, looking around, like, anybody get a chaplain? It looks like, and everyone's like, this guy's nuts, dude. No, I saw a chaplain.
Yeah, right.
Ain't no chaplain, man.
Wow.
And so they're going to house me, and they put me in this, like, they shuffle me around for a little bit to make sure that, like, I'm normal. They're not just going to house me. So then finally they shuffle me around. And I remember spending like the night in like a hallway and just falling asleep and then waking up and being like, oh, it's breakfast.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just like they just didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
And so, because I couldn't be around other people. I couldn't be because of the case that I had going on. So they asked me, like, where do you want to get seen? I said, I don't know, man. I can't go back to general population. Then I'm going to drop out. They're like, drop out? I'm like, yeah, just drop. I don't care what it's from. Just put me down to something. I'm going to drop out. And drop out means like you're affiliated with a gang or whatever, and then like you no longer want to be affiliated, so like they'll pull you and put you something like into isolation.
Right.
And the case that I had was pretty heavy, so they weren't going to put me in anywhere. Well, I was wrong. So they ended up putting me in like protective custody like a week later. And what I didn't know about protective custody, like being in general population, there's this idea that everyone who's PC'd is like all rats and like homos and like all this stuff. That's not true. The general population's protective custody is not being protected from general pop. General population is being protected from them. Because sickos are down there. Like the sickos are down there. And general population is like mostly just gangbangers and drug addicts and people doing dumb small criminal stuff, and like, for the most part.
Right.
Protective custody is like my first dude I had a bunk with had killed his wife and his daughter and took them on a sex trip from Santa Cruz down to Santa Barbara and got caught. Like necromanced them.
Wow.
That's sick.
Right.
And this fool's preaching the gospel to me.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't deal with that in general population.
Right.
There's a dude that was like 4 bunks over from me that was like just got done being bunked with Jesse James Hollywood. Remember the alpha bunk? That guy?
Yeah.
He was there.
Wow.
So like a big ordeal. You know, like it's general population's nothing compared to like it's the worst of the worst, man.
Right. And they lumped you in there with those people.
They lumped me in with those people, those sickos. But everyone on the outside's gonna think I'm a rat now.
Right.
So it was like just this weird thing. And God just protected me through the whole thing. Through the whole thing. Like I got interviewed, I told them what I did and didn't do. And it's not like the movies, like I said, like just because you admit to doing something doesn't mean that you actually can pick up those that they have to prove that you did it.
Right. They can't just believe you.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So they ended up having, because of a technicality, got a lawyer, and so the certain thread got thrown out. I pled no contest to 3 things and ended up doing time served after a year. So then I got out. And by the grace of God, I'm just sitting here right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's so many things happened when I was in there from like, there were 3 people the first day of our Bible study. The first time I ever read the Bible was Psalm 62. There was 2 guys that were, so I was putting my bed together, like my bunk when I first showed up, and I got smacked in the face, dude. And I got hit in the face with something. It was actually like a Bible with like these 2 hands that were like broken with like these chains. And this dude was just throwing it on, it was my bunkmate that was below me, was trying to throw it on his bed, and he hit me with it. He goes, oh, it's my bad, bro. Like, you can have it, though. I'm not going to use that one.
So you literally got Bible thumped.
I literally got thumped in the head. I got smacked in the face with the word of God.
That's
bro. Awesome. Broken chains, set free Bible, some crazy stuff. Yeah. So I grabbed it and I'm looking across I'm like scanning the tank, bro. Like, cause everyone's scanning you. You're the new guy just showed up. Like, so I'm like scanning the tank. I'm looking at everything, and I got myself situated. And I see these 2 dudes who are across the way, right? And they're sitting on a bunk, and I can tell they got books. So I'm like, oh, they're having a Bible study. I've seen it before.
Right.
So I walk across there, and I'm just all, so can I join? Who you have to ask? Like, is it cool if I join you guys? And like, is it cool if I sit down? Like, you just don't go sitting on someone's bunk. Like,
no
reason to fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, I didn't mind that, but like, I'm changed.
Right.
You know, I don't want to be that. I'm not trying not to be that guy anymore. You know. And they're reading Psalm 62, and like, my soul finds rest in the Lord alone. He alone is my rock and my salvation and my fortress, and with him I shall not be greatly shaken. How long will you topple a man? Will you throw him down from his leaning wall, from this tottering fence? With your mouth you're cursed, but with his wings he lifts up. My soul finds rest in God alone. He alone is my rock and my salvation and my fortress, and with him I shall not be shaken.
Wow.
And that was the first scripture I ever read. And it just stuck with me ever since. Right. From that moment, first time I read it, memorized.
Wow.
And I felt like it was like God literally speaking to me for the first time. My soul finds rest in the Lord alone. Alone.
Yeah.
You know?
It's pretty true to your situation at that moment.
Yeah, because I was all alone, dude.
Right.
He is my rock. Okay, so he's going to be the solid foundation, my foundation, and my fortress. What does that mean? He's going to be my protector. Mm-hmm. And I won't be shaken. Even though they try to topple me,
right,
like a leaning wall or a tottering fence.
Right.
He will lift me up on wings.
So then by the time you get out, are you just on fire?
Yeah,
or
but
what?
like, dude, I still smell like me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Church, that was the biggest letdown I ever had in my life, dude.
When you went to church when you got out?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to realize in there it's different. Like, so when you're locked up and you're in jail, a lot of people think that I do chaplaincy because I do chaplaincy for the idea of getting people saved. Mm-hmm. And that's not even close to being the case. Right. You're going in there for the ones that actually are and they need to be encouraged. Because, when you're locked up, you'd be like, well, I'm a Christian now. And everyone would be like, okay, we're going to leave you alone. But then there's no one there who is going to protect you anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you were like hugged up with a group or something when you're locked up, well, that group lets you go to be a follower of Christ, but you're free game for everybody.
Right.
So like if someone comes up and steals your bunk and takes your mattress, you thought you were supposed to be giving, Holmes.
Right. Right.
What's your book say about being forgiving? Mm-hmm. What about that? What's that say?
Yeah,
if you say the wrong thing,
but people use the Bible just for their own
they weaponize
purposes. Yeah.
Right. So you become extremely militant with your faith and willing to sacrifice anything to carry through. Mm-hmm. So it was like waking up at 3:30 in the morning to get breakfast, because that's when they gave you breakfast, was 3:30 in the morning. Right. And then everyone goes back to sleep normally. Well, I'm up working out and reading my Bible. Go to sleep, take a shower, get to sleep at like 7:30, wake up again for 9 for lunch. Everyone eats their lunch. I'm on my bunk eating my Bible. Everyone's eating. Mm. Preparing my notes for the night study, because like a study started. It was like 3 of us and ended up growing to like 50 of us by the time I was gone.
Mm-hmm. You started your own study in there? Okay.
Just started preaching the word, dude. Like it's just Spanish translation, everything, dude. It was a thing, dude.
Yeah. You're speaking in tongues?
No, not me.
I'm just saying Spanish.
Yeah, no, I get you. That's really what it was, right?
Right.
The dialectos.
Yeah.
But I didn't know nothing, man. I was just preparing for that day, dude, and like it's just such a good tank, bro. Like I'm in there with freaking necromantic murderers and like rats and homos and like 60 guys in this tank and 50 are a part of this thing.
And who knows what the Lord, I mean, maybe you do know, but I assume a lot of those guys you never saw again after you left.
Most of them know.
And who knows what the Lord did.
Yeah. I know like 2 of them are still preaching today.
Right.
One of them's in full-time prison for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Prison pastor.
That's awesome.
Still preaching today. Jimmy Alexander.
Nice.
Yeah. The die in there.
Right.
He's good with it.
Yeah. He's like the absent from the body is present with the Lord, right?
So when you come out and you have that kind of like militance to you, because you have to be.
Right.
Right? And you come out and you see these fools, and like I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I can't wait to be here and like worship with people with like-mindedness. The Philippians talks about like-mindedness and one accord, man. This is going to be so amazing. And like, I can't wait. And then it was just like in the bathroom washing my hands beforehand, and someone's like, are you lost? And I'm like, what? I'm like, are you lost? No. Are you looking for someone to be invited here? No, man, I'm just coming to check out your church. He's like, oh, well, you seem like you're here. We do our food banquets are on Tuesdays. I know, I'm here for service, dog.
Wow. Unreal. Now, did that turn you away from that church?
That was the pastor.
And you didn't go back there after that?
That was the pastor, bro.
Right.
So I was like, dude, what? Right? And like church after church, it's like, dude, I look like Jesus, but I don't smell like him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I came out and I'm sitting there, I'm studying the Word of God. Like I've got like notebooks and like doing what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
Trying to soak up as much as I can, trying to figure it all out. It's all fresh to me. I don't even know the difference between a Reformed church, a charismatic church. None of that was in jail.
Right.
None of that was in prison.
Yeah.
They don't have that in there.
Because who cares about that?
It doesn't matter.
Right.
Those are just gangs.
Yes. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I get out here and it's like everyone's trying to like put you into some kind of category as to what you are. So like I was all over the place, man. Mm-hmm. All over the place. I saw some weird stuff. I'm like going to my first like vineyard church out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Like that was some weird crap, man. There's people blowing bubbles.
Right.
like in lights to make like Aurora Borealis or something in their mind. Like,
well, that's biblical.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, God's super impressed with the bubbles.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. That's in Second Opinions.
Don't judge their worship.
7. Yeah, right. Who are you to say how they worship? Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever find anything since you've been out that you connected with? Did you ever find a church that was more? The
church I go to now, I love a lot.
Okay.
But to be fair and honest, I've been going there for 13 years because I've been there since they started, and not until this last year have I felt like they were my tribe. And no matter where I've ever been, I've never felt like it's my tribe.
Is that because of some of the stuff going on in your personal life?
No, it's because church people suck.
Right, but why after 13 years do you now feel accepted?
Yeah, because I've dealt with stuff that they can grasp. I've dealt with problems that like they can understand.
Right. So there's more connection.
Right. It's something they know how to speak into.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I become normalized and have normal problems now.
Right.
So I give you an example of this. I was part of this, like at my church, they have these things called gospel communities. It's basically a small group.
Right.
Yeah. They're all small groups.
Yeah.
Right. It's different visions. Is what they look like.
Right.
So it's gospel community. And I'm in this gospel community with these great, loving, beautiful people. So don't take me wrong when I say this. But we grew up with one of their sons. Jeff Pruitt.
Oh, I know the Pruitts.
Yeah, and Kristen.
They're a big part of my own salvation story, to be honest with you.
Oh, right on. Well, I'm in a gospel community with his parents, Sue and
Steve.
Yeah, and great people. I love them. You talk to them. They've been like on missionary trips overseas, and they're just big deals.
Oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah,
really great. And we were telling stories one time in the small group, and I'm listening to them. And they're just like, well, Jeff and Kristen, who are married now, right, and have plenty of children, and even adopted children, and like they're a great couple,
right?
Loving, giving, following the Lord the best they can with their abilities,
right?
Everyone's got issues. I'm not talking about. They're doing the best they can. I love these guys. They're great.
Yeah.
We were not friends in high school. They were the exact opposite of like who I was, right? So like, especially after Patrick shot himself, like I was talking about earlier, they were part of that group. Right, with Tyler Crispin and like some of these other guys, and they just all kicked me out because I was the one that was with Patrick when he killed himself. So they didn't want nothing to do with me anymore. Right. And they were like the only good friends that I had. Everyone else were like ragged, like losers,
outcasts,
outcasts, right? Bender from Breakfast Club type people.
Oh
yeah. These were the Molly Ringwalds. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's a good analogy.
And so they're telling the story about how when they first started dating, and like we lost sleep over the fact that Jeff was dating a girl who went to a church that believed that they could lose their salvation. And I was like listening to him, and I'm just like, what? I'm like blown away, and I was just like, when I listened to him talk, and they're like, it was like nights of prayer, like months and months of prayer, because Kristen thoroughly believed that she could lose her salvation, and we didn't want that influencing Jeff to think that he could lose his salvation. And I was just like, wow. And they heard me say it like that. I was like, wow.
Right.
And they were like, what? And I said, we just come from different worlds. and Sue was like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I said, well, so let me get this straight. Your biggest issue that your teenage son, as a junior in high school, was dating a girl who believed she could lose her salvation, which in turn made her act more moral because it was a concern for her. Right? More moral as a high school student.
Yeah.
So your problem was your son was dating someone overly moral in high school.
Yeah.
And so we just come from different worlds. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, my mom was concerned about the half pound of cocaine and the 9mm in my closet.
Right.
And she was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like she was like shocked.
Right.
That I was like, oh, you're in my house. Right. It was that kind of a thing. And so church people suck.
Right.
Because a good majority of them are kind of like that.
Yeah.
And they don't mean to be that way.
No.
There's just like this weird hierarchy, But if it's not for idiots like me, who Christ chooses to like save and move on forward, then like the other idiots that are like me are never going to have someone speak into their lives.
Right.
Much like we were talking about with the homeless guy earlier. Right?
Right.
It's because I was following what the Spirit of God was telling me to do, smack that guy upside the head.
Right.
Well, Jesus would never allow that. But tell that to the money changers when you get in court.
Right. Yeah.
There's times and moments for everything, right?
Right.
So, but it's taken me a long time to get to this point. Now most church people, when I talk to, I am myself in front of them, but they think that there should be like a church talk. You know, it's how's it going today? Blessed and highly favored, brother. Really?
I can't stand that
every
stuff.
week.
Yeah.
Every week, dog. Like really?
Right.
Every week.
Right.
Blessed and highly favored. You got no problems in your life. You hypocrite.
Well, it's almost like they don't want to admit they have problems.
That's the issue.
Because then you're defeated. Just if you say the words, all of a sudden you're defeated.
It's I'm proclaiming it over my life.
Yeah, I hate that stuff.
Stupid. So stupid.
Oh,
so stupid. And it just bugs me because there's no the biggest problem that we're talking about, I'm going back to the political thing, the biggest problem that we have politically about how people view us is that Christians are non-authentic.
Right. I'm with you.
Because they're not even authentic within their own community.
Right.
But the other issue is that we as a culture of the church today have a big problem with the idea of being vulnerable in front of one another.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I love my church is because our pastor has created a culture, and the church in itself has created a culture where vulnerability is a sought-after thing.
Right.
It's a sought-after thing.
Right. Well, it's almost more realistic. Like, I mean, there's a reality there to where a lot of people see the church people as phony. Like you're just saying,
Ned Flanders.
We all know that everybody has problems. So whenever I meet a person who says, nope, everything's great, fantastic, I love Jesus, there's no problems, everything's great, sunshine, birds chirping, everything's wonderful. I say, I don't believe you. I think you're full of crap. You're probably cheating on your wife, your son's addicted to drugs, and you got all these problems at home. You just don't want to say it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hugs and muffins and lollipops.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't remember the name of the preacher, but I know DC Talk had it at the beginning of one of their songs. I think it was What If I Stumble?
Okay.
But he said, the biggest problem in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips and walk out the door and don't acknowledge him with their lifestyle. He says that is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? And it's true, right? And I think of us as Christians, if we were more vulnerable and we were more like, no, I'm saved and I believe in the Lord, and he walks me through these things, but I got issues.
Right.
I'm still working through trauma from my past. I'm still dealing with trying to be a dad and a husband and work stuff and all. I mean, we all got these problems, you know what I mean? And I think as we connect over those things, even with non-believers, there's more of a reality there that I think they'll be more drawn to that as opposed to this phony baloney, all Christians are happy all the time crap.
Yeah, and that's just it's unrealistic, right? Yeah. The truth of the matter is that I've never known suffering until I became a Christian.
Right.
I didn't know what real suffering was.
Right.
I thought I did.
Right.
Yeah, but now I'm in the peril of understanding what suffering truly is because I understand what freedom is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, that makes it's a different dichotomy.
Right.
So, but overcoming these things is, I mean, the church today is, I mean, I'm actually pretty blessed. Like you said earlier that I travel a lot. I actually do travel a lot. And in my travels, I've actually been to churches on Sundays in multiple different states,
which is awesome,
right?
That's
and
cool.
Seeing how they do church in different areas, and I don't judge. I have like some things there's been 2 churches that I've actually walked out of.
You're like, heresy.
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Yeah, and one time I actually would have like straight up like, but my mom was with me, and we were in Virginia, and she's like, "Don't make a fuss, just walk out,
just leave." Yeah,
and I'm like, "But Mama," and she's like, "No, don't make a fuss, just walk out."
Right. It's so hard though.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's so hard, and I use the analogy one time.
It was the first day that church had actually opened.
Oh my gosh. See, I was talking to somebody about that one time about how upset I get sometimes when I'm in just a full-on false teaching thing. And I'm like, listen, this is what it's like for me. I said, I want you to imagine that some man gets up on the stage and he starts mentioning your wife by name. And then he starts talking about how she's sleeping with everybody in town, and she's on heroin, and she beats her kids, and they're just spreading all these lies about your wife. I said, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go up there and punch that guy in the face. Right. So to me, I'm listening to somebody describe my Lord that way.
Right.
It's the same concept. I said, you're so mad about someone misrepresenting your wife. This guy's misrepresenting Christ.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It makes me angry, right? Like, a lot of people don't understand that, you know?
Specifically from a pulpit aspect.
Right.
It's because there's a higher, there's just a higher, like,
right.
You know?
Right.
The one that I walked out on that my mom was like, don't do it, was a woman who's the pastor, who was in Virginia.
I already have a problem there.
Yeah, I know you do. But she was wearing these ruby red slippers, and like there was no men in the congregation.
Oh wow.
There was 3 guys in the room with me out of probably like 60 or 70 people.
Right.
One of them was the bass player, and 2 of them were. One of them was a door person, like a greeter, and the other one was running the audio, like in the little sound booth or whatever. So it was surrounded by women. I was the only guy in the actual like pews, the audience or whatever you want to call it.
Wow.
And they like huddled around us so it would be awkward for us to walk out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, that's some Stepford Wives kind of stuff.
It was gnarly. So when the band was done, I was like, I've never even really heard some of these songs. Like they weren't like Bethel songs or something. It was just some weird stuff, dude.
Right.
And it was the first week that this church was actually open, and there had been like a couple of house churches that had come together, and this woman comes up and she's got a cell phone, and I guess that's her Bible in her hand, right? And she's wearing like these ruby red slippers. Now, mind you, I can't see anybody except for like the silhouettes of wigs around me because it's that dark.
This is awesome. This is like a movie.
No, it was that dark. It was that dark, and this chick. God, forgive me for saying this, but like she comes up and she was this pretty big woman. Right. I'm being generous.
Yeah.
And she's wearing all red, like dress, and I'm like Kool-Aid. And so
you're ready for it to break through the wall.
I'm waiting for it, man.
Oh my gosh!
And she's wearing like these bright ruby red slippers, right?
Right.
And she's like, "Today is our first day of our church, and I wanted to get everyone to stand up and click your heels together and say, there's no place like home."
My gosh! You said ruby red slippers, and I thought to myself, like Dorothy.
Exactly. And so like everyone stood up around us and they're like, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. And they all did it. And I was just we're leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
You're looking around for the Tin Man and the Munchkins.
I'm waiting for it, bro. I'm waiting for it. And my mom's like, I don't feel good. I'm like, yeah, we're going to get out of here. Right?
My gosh.
And so we stood up and she's like, there's nothing biblical about this place, like whatsoever, right? And we stood up, we start walking past, and everyone's like, where are you going? You need help? Like, we're just leaving, you know? And we start walking out, and then the dude, one of the three dudes that were in the room, right?
Yeah.
Comes over and tries to stand in front of us, getting in the room. He's like, can you wait so that way the light doesn't come on from the door?
Oh my gosh.
No. and my mom was like, we're leaving. And she goes, no, just go, please sit down and hang out for a little bit so that way the light doesn't interrupt. And I looked at the guy and I said, bro, I have no problems going to prison in Virginia if you don't get the hell out of my way. And he goes, you can leave. And I said, that's what I thought.
Wow.
Right? And so we walked out, and then like there were 6 men that were outside. Right?
Wow, more men outside than inside.
Right. More men outside than inside. So now they're all trying to bombard us from like leaving. Well, where are you going? We're going to have barbecue later. Don't you want some food? Blah, blah, blah. Let me keep you around. Oh, why don't you sign up for our thing? About worst thing ever. We were in Virginia.
That's crazy, dude.
That very next week, we were still in the same spot, Virginia, and I found this like old Baptist church that was in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, dude, I want to go find it out. And it was literally in the middle of like the hills of Virginia.
Nice.
Right? And it was really cool. My mom is 72 and she was the youngest person besides me in the church. And we walked in and like I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. You know, I'm covered in tattoos, right?
Right.
So, oh, you guys lost? No, we're not lost. Well, then you're looking for us. Right, but it wasn't like, are you lost? Like the first pastor I was talking about.
Right.
You sure you need to be here, son? Are you looking for somebody? Yeah. It was more along the lines of like, can we help you? Because we haven't seen anybody here forever. Right. Oh, you're looking for us? Come on in.
Yeah, nice.
Right? And it's old school church, man. It was like a Bible study, like beforehand and before the service, like that kind of a thing. And this big, beautiful oak, like, maybe it was oak. It was just gorgeously wood-built church. It's been out there for generations, and you can tell.
That's so awesome.
Just still maintained and put together. And this guy named Troy is sitting there, and he's just like, we're all having a Bible study and like talking about stuff, and I'm just listening to him. And like sometimes people, they want new people to talk, and so like me, dude, I'm gonna say something, right, and kind of like redirect into like a little bit more theological standpoint on what they're talking about. They're so familiar with one another, like it's a community, like you can tell.
They're probably all related.
Yeah, well, it's got that kind of but like it's a community, it's and they all probably make moonshine together. I'll tell you that much, right? Yeah. Like it's got that kind of feel. That's Appalachia
for communion.
For communion. It's the best type. You know what I'm saying? Lord bless his pineapple and blueberry.
That's right, man.
White lightning.
Wow. So did you get to hear any of the teaching there? Was it good?
The teaching was old, but it was on point. Like it was this Baptist church, right?
Right.
But I saw something when I was there that was really cool. So this old guy had just lost his wife. And he's like, I gotta say, I'm really thankful for this church and how much you guys as a community have come around us and rallied us. And this lady goes, oh, by the way, Troy, I got your dinners for the week. And she pulled out like this bag that had like 5 like meatloaf and like whatever, dude, like different dinners.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff, because this fool's never cooked for himself. You know what I'm saying? Like they're old school. Like his wife's done all the cooking. His wife's dead.
Right. So he'll starve unless someone takes care of him.
Someone takes care of him.
Yeah.
And this church like rallied, and he's like, "You guys are so good to me. God's blessed me so heavily. Like I can't believe it. I don't even know what's happening in my life. I just all of a sudden there's food showing up. I've never been so humbled and so blessed and so beautiful. You guys are so beautiful that Christ's love just shines through you on the day." And I'm sitting there going like, "Yeah,
wow,
yeah, man."
You're like, this is where it's at.
This is it.
Yeah.
It's not this hoopla of like lights and smoke fog machines and all this other garbage just gets in our way, dude. Of like creating ambiance. Like that's where it's at.
Right.
Jesus gave 2 major commandments of right, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Right. That means He's first. You put other. We're talking about second, right? Mm-hmm. The second is to go forth in all nations, making what? Disciples.
Yep.
How do you disciple people if you ain't feeding them? How are you discipling people if you're not speaking intimacy in their lives? I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, interconnection. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How are you discipling people unless you're making true connections and true community? Mm-hmm. How are you doing that? How are you doing that when you're too busy trying to hold yourself in such high regard so no one sees your filth?
Right.
And this is the issue with the church today. I saw these old people who were going to die together in this church with no young blood whatsoever. Haven't had a young person under the age of 60 in like 10 years until we showed up. And these people are literally living out Christ's community with one another.
Right.
Feeding each other.
Yeah.
Looking out for one another.
Right.
But yet we're concerned about like kingdom economy. And I'm going to get a little fired up about here for a second.
Go ahead, man.
Let me go
take us home. This will be the last thing we go into, so you take us home.
So this is my biggest issue. When the church started in Jerusalem, it started as like this movement, mm-hmm. right? And as time went on, it became legalized and like it spread across Europe. It became like an industry. So when it came over here, it became a business. And so as the economy has changed, the church has gone with it. And a lot of people don't put this together, right? Mm-hmm. So you think about like the early eras, like the fire and the brimstone aspect. I'm not talking about the founding fathers and the forefathers and the stuff that they believe. I'm talking about when the industrialized aspect of our country and the church went hand in hand. Mm-hmm. There was a fire and brimstone era, right? Well, this is the commodities aspect of our economy. If you wanted coffee, you either had to grow it or get it from somebody, but everything was a commodity, right?
Right.
And this is the fire and brimstone era of the church. And what it looked like. And around the 40s, 50s, the economy turned into a service economy. And right about that same exact time, the church ended up turning into what? Seeker-friendly.
Mm. Yep.
And it stayed that way until around the 90s, right? Where we're just going to accept everyone for who they are and what they come from because everyone has a chance to be serviced here. And now we're in an experiential-based economy. So what do we have in the church? We have this church that's driven on experiential basis, and I will give you my tithe as long as the pastor tells at least 3 jokes and the music's good enough and your drummer kicks ass where I can actually sit here long enough and put some music and put some money towards the music.
Right.
Because that's worship, not really what I'm hearing from the Word of God, but the music is the worship.
Right.
And this is the problem that we have in today's church, is that the longer the economy gets and goes to where it is, and the worse the economy gets, what do you think is going to happen to the church? Because they've been following suit. And if it is the other way around, then that says something more about the church than it does on us. Mm-hmm. Or it does on them, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I know that's a weird point of view and a weird stance, but if you look at what I just said, you're like, okay, well, that makes sense a little bit. I can see your tread of thought.
No, I got you completely.
And so, what I'm seeing when I've gone to all these different places and all these different church lines, I'm seeing all these things where different churches are stuck. Like, that church is still kind of stuck in the early portions of the seeker-friendly aspect. Mm-hmm. They still got that part down.
Right.
Of serving one another.
Yeah.
Everyone is welcome. Well, I'd much rather go to that and take a step backwards in that tradition than to come forward, because the problem that we're seeing with the church today is exactly the same thing we first started talking about when we were talking about the sovereignty of the individual. Mm-hmm. That's happening just as much as in the church as anywhere else.
Right.
And I'm not talking about traditions like Catholic Catholicism doing your Hail Mary. I'm talking about holding the traditions of what God calls us to in those 3 commandments that I just led. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and all your mind. The second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Yep. Go forth into all nations, creating disciples, baptized in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Know that I am what? With you to the end of the age.
Yeah.
Nothing more needs to be said. Why do we have all these political problems? Because the church isn't leading. Mm-hmm. Why do we have, why do we have black churches and Korean churches and white churches? This should be just the church.
Yeah. Right.
When the whole BLM thing happened, with the George Floyd situation happened, the church should have been the one to step up to handle that situation. Right. But instead, what we did is we backed off and see what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so people create politics, and they treat Trump and they treat Biden like they are God, but they're not Jesus.
Right. Right. Although some people think Trump is, but he's not.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it's still right. A false dichotomy. No government is God.
Right.
And they shouldn't be.
Correct.
And so. And that's an issue today. And the problem that I see with the church is gone more beyond the individualism within the church not being able to spread itself out. But where does the church go from here except for God is weaning out his certain people to be able to know who's his and who isn't. Mm-hmm. Not for his sake, but for ours.
Right.
And so I figure that by the way that things are going right now, that the most wretched of individuals are the ones that are going to be stuck around. Because they're going to be the only ones that are sincere and real. Right. Because I'm noticing that since COVID, the church itself has dwindled away, and there's more people watching online because, well, it really didn't mean that much to them anyway.
Right.
They can catch it when they can catch it.
Yeah. Right.
So that's the problem with today's church. They don't understand what it means to actually be the bride.
Right. Well, then in some senses, they're not really the church. They're a religious organization. Yeah. Right? They're American Christianity. They're churchianity. They're not...
Oh yeah,
the church, right. The bride of Christ.
Transitionalism is what it is.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole other topic right there.
There is, yeah. I mean, we could probably go another couple hours.
But right.
I mean, we could talk for days, but yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I've realized.
Yeah. And
after seeing so many different churches from so many different states, I mean, Alabama, Virginia, Kentucky, Arizona, Nevada, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, Texas, Montana, South Dakota, California, all over the state. Louisiana, Florida. I've been to churches in every single one of those states.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many different dichotomies of church. And you know what they're all doing wrong? Church.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's awesome and true.
And you know what they are doing right at the same time?
Church. Yeah. For the most part, right?
Yeah.
Man.
Gotta love them, man.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about that whole thing about, like, God is giving people over. I feel like we're in an era of seeing God give people over to the demonic.
Which is neat in a certain sense.
It's a holy discontent.
Right? It's sad, but at least the lines are getting drawn more clearly. Right. To where before you meet a lot of people that go to church like, well, I'm not sure. Maybe they're saved. Maybe they're not. Maybe this guy's real. The lines are getting drawn in the sand pretty defined for most people.
Yeah.
You know, if you tell me you're a Christian and you believe and you follow the Bible, yet or maybe not. Maybe you say, I'm a Christian, I believe, but all that Bible, that's all false. I'm like, nah, you got the wrong Jesus then. Yeah. Sorry. You know, you may call yourself a Christian, but we're not the same. Right. We're not even close to the same. We're the same in title, maybe, but that's it. You know,
right.
You know, that's what I've been saying for years. I go to all these buildings that have the name on the name Christ on the sign, but you go in there and you're like, where is he? He's not in here. This is a false front. It looks like a church from the outside, but you go in, where's the church? It's all programs. It's all human, man-made stuff. You know, right. But again, I could go for days on that. But we're gonna have to cut it out. So thanks, man. Yeah, glad we finally able to do this.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. Please join the Facebook group to continue these conversations, and I would greatly appreciate your feedback. You can reach me at whycan'twetalaboutThat at proton.me. Here's a clip from next week's episode.
So a lot of the Christians will cherry pick certain laws that they're going to keep or not.
Right.
And it's been, the New Testament says that all scripture is beneficial. And there's been like I think a part of the downfall of church is that they've put this big separation, this big gap in like, God is God of believers, not just like, there's not like a separate God for Jews and a separate God for Gentiles. And I think that's one of the reasons why Jews have not come to Christ is because we're saying, we're throwing out all this stuff. Like the law shows us how to live a holy life.
Right.
God says, like in the New Testament and the Old Testament, be holy for I am holy. And here's how you do it.